The blood drained from the faces of the cultivators who attacked Yang Kai. All of them were not weak. Otherwise, they would never be able to go this deep into the Dragonbone Wilderness, but they were one-sidedly defeated even after they attacked first. Where did this master come from? All of them stared at the wooden boat with wide eyes and horror. You are Yang Kai? After having a good look, it was a short and chubby man who recognized Yang Kai and immediately yelled in surprise. As if they had seen a ghost in broad daylight, the others stared at Yang Kai in astonishment. Yang Kai was stunned. Retracting his gaze from the anomaly in that strange space, he glanced down frowning. Do I know you? The cultivators below look extremely unfamiliar to him. He was sure that he had never met them, so how did they know him? Although he was now an Emperor Realm Master, he was not so arrogant as to think his name and face had spread all throughout the Eastern Territory. The pudgy cultivator knew that he had made a mistake and hurriedly shut his mouth, refusing to say another word. But when he met Yang Kai's eyes, it was burning with hatred and anger, as if he had a great grudge against him. Senior Brother Yang. These people are the legacy disciples of Zhu Tianqing from Brahma Holy Land. Lu Wen suddenly whispered behind Yang Kai. Her main purpose in the Eastern Territory was to gather all kinds of information, so she was familiar with the origins of these people, and was quickly able to identify them with just a glance. Yang Kai's eyes flashed and nodded. Zhu Tianqing's legacy disciples? Good, very good. If his legacy disciples were here, it meant that Zhu Tianqing should also be nearby. According to the information disclosed by Jia Si, Zhu Tianqing was very likely to be with Zhu Hong. Excitement rose in Yang Kai's heart as he would probably be able to find Gao Xueting after finding those two people. A sudden realization struck him in the next moment, causing Yang Kai to grin and ask, Did Yin Lusheng tell you about me? Although Yin Lusheng suffered a huge loss in the Shattered Star Sea at Yang Kai's hands, he did not die. He made a deal and signed the soul contract with Yang Kai at the cost of revealing information about Xiao Xiao in exchange for Yang Kai bringing him out of the void crack. With the soul contract, Yang Kai could not kill Yin Lusheng even if he had the intention to, and could only watch him leave. Yang Kai had only met a few Eastern Territory masters in the Shattered Star Sea. Yao Si, Qi Gui, and the others were not bored enough to spread his identity around, so only Yin Lusheng would do such a thing. He probably guessed that Yang Kai would come to Eastern Territory to look for Xiao Xiao, and informed the people of Brahma Holy Land in advance, which explained why he was recognized by these cultivators. That bastard is truly despicable, trying to murder me with a borrowed knife. Yin Lusheng would have no idea that Yang Kai had already broken through to the Emperor realm. The pudgy cultivator did not deny Yang Kai's statement, simply gritting his teeth and snorting, Good. It was Senior Brother Yin from Netherworld Sect who told me about you. What else did he say? Yang Kai asked with a snicker. The pudgy cultivator bellowed in a low voice. He said that Zhang Hao and Zhang Xian, the two holy sons, died tragically at your hand. Yang Kai nodded. And it seems that you people from Brahma Holy Land have been searching for my whereabouts. The pudgy cultivator snorted. The two holy sons were my Brahma Holy Land's hope for the future, and they were killed by you. Do you think the Holy Land would let this slide? If you are smart, follow us back to the Holy Land to meet with our elders and Holy Master, and maybe your punishment will be lighter. Refuse, and Brahma Holy Land will chase you to the ends of the world. No matter where you hide, you will not be able to escape death. Yang Kai was indifferent. You don't have the skills to talk about my death, but it is up to this master if you are going to die here. The faces of the pudgy cultivator and his companions changed drastically, immediately staring at Yang Kai vigilantly. Yang Kai's gaze swept across them before turning back to a certain point in the sky behind them and asking bluntly, Is Zhu Tianqing in there? The pudgy cultivator was shocked and stuttered. What are you talking about? There was a look of panic on his face, obviously trying hard to hide something. With a cold snort, Yang Kai took a step forward and reappeared directly above their heads, both of his hands rapidly forming a set of hand seals while he manipulated the space principles around him. The pudgy cultivator and the others turned pale all of a sudden, as if a mountain was pressing on top of their heads, each of them finding themselves out of breath and their blood flowing backwards, completely unable to resist Yang Kai. Emperor Realm. Only now did these people realize Xianxia was already an Emperor Realm Master. The pudgy cultivator shuddered when he thought about how he had shamelessly boasted in front of an emperor, and a chill spread from his head to his toes. No wonder this Xianxia could so easily resolve our joint attack just now. It turns out that this bastard has already broken through to the Emperor realm. The gap in strength is huge. We're not his opponent. But why? Why is a newly promoted Emperor Realm Master this powerful? The pudgy cultivator did not even feel such a powerful aura from his honored master, Zhu Tianqing. Was this boy stronger than his honored master? But how was that possible? His honored master had been an Emperor Realm Master for centuries and had a completely consolidated foundation. How could a cultivator who just broke through be comparable to him? Just what was happening? Just as the pudgy cultivator was lost in confusion, a wave of ripples suddenly appeared somewhere in the sky, caused by Xianxia's manipulation of the local space principles. As the ripples spread, a dark corridor suddenly appeared. The pitch-black corridor was seemingly endless, and in front of the entrance of the corridor was a very primitive animal skin, exuding a peculiar power. It seemed that the existence of this animal skin was the key to opening this void corridor. That's... Lu Wen's beautiful eyes lit up as she pointed at the animal skin. That's the animal skin I found. Xianxia raised his brow as he confirmed that he was at the right place. It was just that he did not expect a small sealed world to be hidden here, and the way to open it was with this animal skin. No, this animal skin is bigger than the one I found, about twice the size. Lu Wen suddenly frowned. Xianxia replied lightly, because the one you found was only one half and the other half is here. It's now obvious why Elder Gao needed someone to solve this problem, because she realized that the animal skin was incomplete. She probably wanted to find the owner of the other half. Xianxia's eyes flashed as he turned to stare at the pudgy cultivator below. Answer me, did the other half of this animal skin belong to your master? It was a simple question, but it was laced with Xianxia's spiritual energy. Xianxia had benefited a lot from the soul battle between the two great emperors in his knowledge sea, and was now far more proficient in the usage of his soul. Supplemented with his already powerful spiritual energy, forcing information out from a Tao source realm cultivator was as simple as breathing. Sure enough, even though a hint of resistance flitted across his face, the pudgy cultivator was unable to resist the coercion from Xianxia's soul, and soon replied mechanically, yes. Xianxia narrowed his eyes. Was there a woman who came to your master for help more than a month ago? Yes. What is your master planning? Honored master went to Earth City's city lord, Zhu Hong, whom he had a good relationship with, to join forces and defeat that woman to take all the secrets stored in here. Xianxia was furious upon hearing this, and a murderous aura so cold that it seemed a winter blizzard had descended surged out of him. Snorting heavily, he shouted, what is the difference between working with that woman and working with Zhu Hong? Why not just split the secrets of this place equally? Why did Zhu Tianqing need to make such a fuss, at the cost of offending another master of the same level? The pudgy cultivator answered honestly. Honored master said, that woman still retained her primordial yin, and she was very strong, so if he could capture her and refine her primordial yin, he could break through to the second-order emperor realm. It is not easy to find a woman with a first-order emperor realm cultivation, especially one with her primordial yin intact. Compared with the secrets here, honored master was more interested in her. How dare he? Xianxia roared loudly, his face looking extremely terrifying. The pudgy cultivator spewed out a mouthful of blood when he was released from the soul pressure and fell into a state of total shock upon realizing that he seemed to have revealed some incredible information. The other cultivators looked aggrieved as well, but due to their inferior strength, they did not even dare to say a word. Sir, it should not be too late, you should go in now, Zhang Ruoxi urged worriedly. Malevolent aura churned inside her as she glared at Zhu Tianqing's disciples with her beautiful eyes, and her tone became cold as she assured him, leave them to me. Xianxia nodded and seethed. Kill them all. Zhang Ruoxi shouted in a low voice, yes, including the pudgy cultivator. There were 5 cultivators here, but only 2 of them were third-order Tao source realms. The pudgy cultivator, whose soul had been heavily injured by Xianxia just now, was one of those too, and, as a result, he would probably not be able to use even half of his strength. Among the other three, two of them were second-order Dao Source Realms, while the last was just first-order. Based on Zhang Ruoxi's previous performance in Purple Mountain City's arena, it would take some effort for her to defeat them, but it should not be a problem. What's more, Zhang Ruoxi was wearing a defensive Emperor artifact, the Pink Cloud's Phoenix robe, so Xianxia had no worries about her safety. This little girl still had a lot of potential for growth, and a life and death battle was the best whetstone for the current her. Therefore, there was no need for Xianxia to bother with others weaker than him, as he could leave them to Zhang Ruoxi to deal with, saving him time and allowing her to grow. After giving orders, Xianxia stepped out and came directly to the front of the surging void corridor. He stretched out his hand to press the animal skin lightly, and with the surge of space principles, his hand vanished, followed by the rest of his body into the darkness. This void corridor was currently concealed and sealed, so others may not have been able to enter it, but thanks to Xianxia's proficiency in the Tao of space, entering was as simple as pushing a door for him. The misty small world was filled with a rich and dense world energy that seemed to be milky in color. At a glance, the whole space seemed to be filled with fluffy cotton. The entire small world was only about a dozen kilometers wide and seemed more man-made than natural. It was most likely crafted by an ancient and powerful master. Various rich medicinal fragrances permeated the air. The ground, with a radius of more than a dozen kilometers, was split into dozens of square plots of land. Most of these plots were empty, but had fertile soil. It seemed that someone had just recently collected all the herbs here, as there were still traces of it being dug up. This was an unbelievable discovery. Never would anyone have guessed that there would be an ancient medicine garden in this small sealed world. Xianxia could only imagine the numerous exotic plants planted on these fertile plots, and how many miraculous and precious spirit medicines were accumulated over the years. Only 2 squares of the medicine garden were still well preserved, covering an area of 2 to 3 square kilometers. In these 2 squares, there were many kinds of exotic plants well over the age of 10,000 years, growing vigorously. The rich medicine fragrances that filled the air actually came from these 2 plots. These 2 plots were covered with a faint golden light curtain, acting as a kind of protective barrier. At this moment, Gao Shueting was sitting cross-legged at a certain spot in the medicine garden, recovering from her wounds with her eyes closed. Her aura was weak, her face as pale as snow, and her hairpins were dislodged in multiple places, causing her hair to be disheveled. The Emperor artifact Radiant Sun Mirror was hovering above her, shrouding her with a soft, gentle light. There were blood patches on her white snowy dress, a particularly large one still oozing out from a wound on her abdomen. She seemed to have undergone a huge fight, as her Emperor Qi was almost exhausted and her tender body could not help shivering even while she was healing herself. Although there were countless precious spirit grasses and elixirs here, they could not restore her combat strength in a short time. Outside the golden light curtain, a man was repeatedly striking the barrier with his glowing blade, the burning ocean of stars blade. Every blow resulted in an earth-shaking explosion, causing the light curtain to vibrate unstably, as if it could be broken at any time. Xianxia did not know who had created this light curtain that, while seemingly fragile and weak, was in fact exceptionally strong. It still remained intact after being attacked for such a long time by the man with the glowing blade. The man was shouting like a madman, furious at the light barrier that separated him from Gao Shueting. Suddenly, Gao Shueting opened her eyes and she glared coldly at the man who was attacking the barrier, remarking lightly, "Zhu Tianqing, this queen has known you for hundreds of years, but I didn't know your true colors until now. You really surprised me." Zhu Tianqi fumed. "Slut, this king is going to make plenty of love to you after breaking this barrier." Disgust and anger flashed across Gao Shueting's eyes as she bellowed, "Give it up! This queen will never let you touch a strand of her hair even if she needs to self-destruct." Zhu Tianqing snorted coldly. "That will depend on whether you have the opportunity. You are seriously injured now, and it's dreadfully difficult for you to even move a muscle. Once this barrier is broken, The rest is not up to you to decide. Gao Shueting retorted. This queen is an Azure Sun Temple elder. If I die here today, you will be chased to death by Azure Sun Temple in the future. Zhu Tianqing growled as he sneered. Azure Sun Temple is truly strong, and this king has great respect for the strength of your temple master Wen Zishan. But so what? Your Azure Sun Temple can act domineering in the Southern Territory. But this is the Eastern Territory. Even if Temple Master 1 is strong, he can't make a scene in the Eastern Territory. Haven't you heard the phrase, even the mighty dragon is no match for the native serpent? Since this king has plotted this out, he is naturally not afraid of retaliation from your temple. After hearing this, Gao Shueting could not help revealing a look of despair. Fortunately, she managed to activate the barrier left behind in the medicine garden by some ancient master. Given her current dire condition, she could only hide in the medicine garden. However, she had no idea how long this barrier could last. Once Zhu Tianqing succeeded in breaking through, she would not be able to fight back. Her plan was that once the barrier was destroyed, she would immediately self-destruct and end her life without letting this vile man contaminate her purity. A man who had a playful smile on his face and a lazy tone of voice, whose attitude always seemed to anger others, unrestrainedly surfaced in of her beautiful eyes, and the fierce gaze of Gao Shueting was slowly replaced by a sense of gentleness. What does it matter that I was raised by you? I'm not a child. I've not been one since I turned 18 years old. It upsets me that even after I reached the Emperor realm, I'm still a little girl in your eyes. You have never treated me as a woman. If there is an afterlife, I don't want to be raised by you again. I want to grow up healthy and stand in front of you again as a woman. Brother Zhu, are you done resting? If you are, how about you give me a hand? Zhu Tianqing was a little anxious seeing that his attacks were in vain after such a long time. So he turned around and stared at another man who was sitting cross-legged not far away, adjusting his breathing, recovering from his injuries. This man was the city lord of Earth City, Zhu Hong. The cultivations of these three people were the same First-Order Emperor realm. If they really wanted to fight, their strengths would be on par with each other. The reason Gao Shueting suffered such a serious injury was not that she was inferior to Zhu Tianqing, but because she was outnumbered. Battles between cultivators in the same realm were always extremely dangerous, yet Gao Shueting displayed her great strength by still being able to seriously wound one of them in a 1-against-2 situation. Zhu Hong's face was pale, and his aura was fluctuating unstably. An enormous seal stamp engraved with countless beasts was placed beside him. As he breathed, the flesh on his body squirmed, and his wounds were gradually recovering. It seemed he cultivated a very mysterious healing art. Hearing Zhu Tianqing's calling, Zhu Hong opened his eyes with a frown. Brother Zhu, you didn't tell me that I would have to deal with an Azure Sun Temple elder before coming here. Zhu Tianqing smiled. What's wrong? Are you scared, Brother Zhu? It's true that Azure Sun Temple does have some fame, comparable to my Brahma Holy Land. But, since it is a sect of the Southern Territory, what is Brother Zhu afraid of? Zhu Hong replied. Of course Brother Zhu is not afraid. Brahma Holy Land has a great number of powerful masters, but Azure Sun Temple is strong as well. After this, Brother Zhu just needs to hide in Brahma Holy Land, and Azure Sun Temple can do nothing about you even if they learn of your involvement. However, this Zhu is unlike you. I'm just a mere city lord. If Temple Master Wen Zishan really comes to the Eastern Territory, how is this Zhu supposed to fight against him? I would just be slaughtered. The corner of Zhu Tianqing's mouth twitched. Brother Zhu, don't be bothered by unnecessary worries. No one will know about what we did here today. Even if Azure Sun Temple received some news about this, they don't have enough evidence to prove us guilty. Brother Zhu, there is nothing to be afraid of. Zhu Hong shook his head. It's always good to be careful. Brother Zhu has a huge backing, allowing you to enjoy a cool shade under a big tree. You don't understand the difficulties of us sectless people. Zhu Tianqing sneered. We have already come this far. Don't tell me Brother Zhu wants to back out now? After a pause, Zhu Hong responded. Of course not. After all, I have already joined hands with you to hurt Elder Gao. I'm afraid I won't be able to get out of this deal even if I wish to quit. Since you already understand, what are you still hesitating for? Zhu Tianqing pressed on. Zhu Hong replied, previously, Brother Zhu told me there were huge opportunities here, and offered to split those benefits evenly with me. This Zhu accepted without any hesitations, but right now, it doesn't seem that you are really going to split the benefits evenly with me. Zhu Tianqing was stunned and asked, why do you think so? This place is an ancient medicine garden full of countless rare and exotic spirit medicines. After we settle matters with her, we will evenly split these spirit medicines. Don't you trust the credibility of this Zhu? Zhu Hong answered as he grinned. Spirit medicines can be split evenly, but how about her primordial yin? Brother Zhu, how are you going to share it with me? After hearing this, Zhu Tianqing could not help putting on a puzzled look, questioning, how can it possibly be shared? Primordial yin was not an object and definitely could not be shared. Zhu Hong suddenly revealed, Brother Zhu has been stuck at the peak of the First Order Emperor realm for many years, and this Zhu heard that you have cultivated a dual cultivation technique in recent years. In order to promote your cultivation, you have collected primordial yin from many women and even 2 of your legacy disciples. If you really manage to capture Elder Gao today, isn't Brother Zhu going to break through his shackles and break through to the Second Order Emperor realm? Zhu Tianqing was somewhat embarrassed after being exposed by Zhu Hong, especially when Zhu Hong mentioned the things that he had done to his 2 legacy disciples. This matter should have been a well-guarded secret, so he had no idea how Zhu Hong knew about it. I think I understand what Brother Zhu means. Zhu Tianqing nodded his head in acknowledgement, snorting lightly with some displeasure. Brother Zhu, just state your terms. We have been friends for a long time, you don't have to beat around the bush. Zhu Hong raised his eyebrows and grinned. Calm down, Brother Zhu. This Zhu is just speaking the truth. This Zhu would do his best to help Brother Zhu break through his shackles. It is extremely hard to break through when in the Emperor realm, and if Brother Zhu gets an opportunity to reach the Second Order Emperor realm, it would really be a blessing from the heavens, incomparable to the benefits that these herbs can bring. Get to the point. Zhu Tianqing was starting to be impatient. Zhu Hong continued with an embarrassed look. About the spirit medicines here, this Zhu wants to split the share in 30-70. You take 30%, and I get 70%. Zhu Tianqing's face darkened. Brother Zhu, aren't you being too greedy? Every spirit medicine here has an age of over 10,000 years and many of them are emperor grade. I don't know which ancient master owned this place, but there are many spirit medicines here that have long gone extinct. They are unobtainable treasures in the outside world, yet now you are telling me to give a 70% share of them to you. How about you take the 30% including this Elder Gao, while I get 70%? Zhu Hong smiled. Why would I want Elder Gao? Although it's good to have a beautiful lady, she has thorns all over her body. This Zhu can't afford to enjoy her. Besides, everyone wants to gain the most in every deal. Am I not trying to negotiate with Brother Zhu now? 40-60. No more than that. Zhu Tianqing offered with a cold face. Although this Zhu can most likely break through to the Second Order Emperor realm after this, there are so many spirit grasses and elixirs here, and it's just a matter of time before Brother Zhu breaks through too. You'll not lose out in this arrangement. After pondering for a while, Zhu Hong nodded as a trace of determination flashed in his eyes. Good, we will do as Brother Zhu proposed. Zhu Hong knew that Zhu Tianqing definitely had the advantage in the 40-60 terms. But Zhu Tianqing was an elder of Brahma Holy Land after all. Once Zhu Tianqing had broken through, he would grow a lot more powerful. Doing him a favor now meant Zhu Hong would be on better terms with him in the future. Gao Xueting could not help trembling in anger as she heard these 2 bargaining over her like some marketplace commodity. However, she could do nothing even if she was enraged, as she did not even have the power to protect herself. 40-60? I'm afraid that's not acceptable. A sudden voice interrupted both Zhu Hong and Zhu Tianqing, causing them to jump as they turned to look at the source of the sound in horror. Zhu Hong, who was in the process of recovering, stood up abruptly, and the radiance of the Emperor artifact, 10,000 Beast Seal, shone lightly beside him, releasing a vicious aura. This was a small sealed world hidden in the void. If the restriction was not opened by the two halves of the animal skin, no one could enter. They could come in only because the two pieces of animal skin had opened a void corridor for them to pass through. Nevertheless, another visitor had suddenly appeared. Even Zhu Hong and Zhu Tianqing, who were Emperor Realm Masters, could not help feeling a chill running down their spines. Is it a ghost? The two of them murmured in their hearts. After hearing this voice, though, Gao Shueting, who had been in despair, shook as her dull eyes beamed with hope again, focusing in the direction of the voice. A young man appeared about a few dozen meters away from the trio, smiling lightly. No one realized his presence before he spoke, as if he really was a ghost. "Who are you?" Zhu Hong shouted. Zhu Tianqing furrowed his brow as he released his divine sense to scan Yang Kai, soon figuring out that he was just a first-order Emperor Realm Master like them, allowing him to slightly relax. No matter how this person came in or what his purpose was, as long as his cultivation was the same or below him, Zhu Tianqing was not afraid. "City Lord Zhu, Elder Zhu?" Yang Kai cupped his fist and smiled at them, like he knew them for a long time. "Long time no see." Zhu Hong was flabbergasted, examining Yang Kai seriously once again to confirm he did not know him, soon asking again, "Who are you?" Yang Kai smiled faintly. "My trivial name is not worth mentioning." Zhu Hong was steaming in rage, but he knew that there was no use asking again since this person did not want to reveal his name. Calming down, his expression turned serious as he asked, "How did you get in?" Previously, when Zhu Tianqing and Gao Shueting worked together to enter, Zhu Tianqing had quietly left a secret way in for Zhu Hong, and that was the reason why he could enter this place. However, he did not understand how Yang Kai could get in here. Did he use the secret entrance too? It can't be. Only Zhu Tianqing and I know how to enter using that method. Others can't know of it. There are supposed to be a few legacy disciples of Zhu Tianqing guarding outside. If this guy can appear here in silence, perhaps the people outside are already dead. Considering all this, Zhu Hong panicked and he secretly glanced at Zhu Tianqing, only to find that his expression was indifferent, as if he did not care about the safety of his disciples at all. "Looks like this friend has outstanding ability to be able to find us here. This king is impressed." Zhu Tianqing stared at Yang Kai coldly. Even though his words said so, his face did not show the slightest bit of admiration. Friend remarked that there is something wrong with the 40-60 arrangement. "May I know if you have any other brilliant ideas?" He came straight to the point. Yang Kai replied lazily, "I wouldn't call it a brilliant idea. It's just a small proposal from me. I would like to hear about it." Zhu Tianqing's face darkened. "I'll take everything here, and you two scram back to wherever you come from. What do you think?" Yang Kai beamed at them. "Impudence." Zhu Hong was maddened. He initially thought that this young man probably just wanted a share of the harvest. If it was just that, Zhu Hong would grant his wish for now, as it was always not too late to get revenge later. However, he did not expect that this young man would be so greedy, intending to take everything for himself. Then what was the purpose of him following Zhu Tianqing all the way here, and even offending an Azure Sun Temple elder? He could never accept this proposal. Everyone was a first-order emperor, so he was not afraid of fighting against Yang Kai. Moreover, he had Zhu Tianqing with him while Yang Kai was alone. Zhu Tianqing was infuriated too and snorted coldly, "Friend, you sure have a big appetite. You should mind your table manners." Yang Kai's face darkened and a cold brilliance shone in his eyes as he spoke. "Old dog, mind your words. If you offend this young master, don't blame me for disrespecting you elders." "Very good." Zhu Tianqing laughed in anger. "This king really wants to see how capable you are for having the guts to boast so shamelessly. Stop putting up a front." Yang Kai burst into laughter and looked at him contemptuously. "Elder Zhu, don't tell me you don't know this young master. Even your disciples were able to recognize this young master at a glance, while you, as an elder of Brahma Holy Land, are still trying to pretend this is the first time you've seen my face? TSK, what are you plotting? Huh? Brother Zhu, do you know this little brat?" Zhu Hong looked at Zhu Tianqing in surprise. Zhu Tianqing's face turned ugly after being exposed by Yang Kai, and he replied in a deep voice, I do. This little brat is named Yang Kai, and he is the murderer of Zhang Hao and Zhang Xian in the Shattered Star Sea. He is an enemy of my Brahma holy land. It is impossible for us to coexist beneath the same sky. What? Both Zhang Hao and Zhang Xian holy sons died at his hand. Zhu Hong was appalled. Besides the news about the closing of the Shattered Star Sea for no reason, Zhu Hong was also informed that Brahma Holy Land had suffered a huge loss this time. The death of 2 holy sons alone was enough to damage the foundation of Brahma Holy Land, as they were both talented rising stars who could only be found once in 100 years. Both of these holy songs were highly valued by the elders of Brahman Holy Land and were considered its future pillars. No one could have guessed their trip to the Shattered Star Sea would be their last. Only at this moment did Zhu Hong learn that the 2 holy sons died at Yang Kai's hands. But soon, realization dawned on Zhu Hong, and he questioned with a puzzled look, since this little brat just came out of the Shattered Star Sea, doesn't that mean that he has just broken through to the Emperor realm? Yes, that should be the case. Zhu Tianqing nodded lightly. Zhu Hong snorted as he turned a disdainful look towards Yang Kai. Little brat, your courage is admirable. How dare you bark in front of the city lord and elder Jew when you only just reached the Emperor realm? I pity your limited intelligence. One should be focused on consolidating their foundation after breaking through to a new great realm, as, if it was unstable, there was a risk of one's cultivation regressing. Zhu Hong wondered why Yang Kai was still running around at this time instead of solidifying his new Emperor realm cultivation in retreat, and questioned how his sect elders had been teaching him. In an instant, Yang Kai turned into an arrogant and ignorant kid in Zhu Hong's eyes, and he replaced his bewildered face with one of contempt. Yang Kai turned a deaf ear to his words and looked at Elder Zhu as he continued, Elder Zhu, I want to clarify something with you. What? Zhu Tianqing's face was cold. Yang Kai continued with a smile, I don't mind if you say that Zhang Hao died in my hands, because I really killed him, but Zhang Xian's death is none of my business. Besides, before Zhang Xian died, he was the one who begged me to kill Zhang Hao to avenge him. Seriously, I don't know what kind of conflict there was between your sect's 2 holy sons that they would wish earnestly for each other's deaths even as they died. You know, I'm a soft-hearted person, so I felt obliged to fulfill the last wishes of those whom I meet. So I killed Zhang Hao for Zhang Xian in order to allow him to die in peace. Utter nonsense. Zhu Tianqing was furious. Zhang Hao and Zhang Xian were very close to each other. Although they are not direct brothers, their bonds were even stronger than that. Zhang Xian would never let you kill Zhang Hao. Yang Kai snorted coldly. It's up to you to believe it or not. Zhu Tianqing took a deep breath to calm down his anger before pressing on in a cold voice. Since you have entered here, this king's useless disciples outside, I don't know, probably dead. Yang Kai grinned. He was confident in Zhang Ruoxi's strength. Even if she could not win against them, she would still not be hurt with the pink cloud's phoenix robe that she possessed, and if the terrifying power hidden in her bloodline was forced out, the few disciples of Zhu Tianqing would be in trouble. In short, the disciples of Zhu Tianqing were heading for a disaster. Good. The 2 holy sons died at your hands, and this king's disciples died at your hands too. Now that you have brought yourself here, then don't you think about leaving alive? Zhu Tianqing was infuriated, and his whole body exuded a rich murderous intent. As soon as he pushed his Emperor Qi, a dense Emperor intent burst out like an explosion, causing the world principles in this small sealed world to shake. He slightly shook the blade in his hand and slashed towards Yang Kai. Witnessing such a hot exchange of words between Yang Kai and Zhu Tianqing, Zhu Hong knew that it was inevitable to have a battle, but with both him and Zhu Tianqing cooperating, he did not put Yang Kai in his eyes at all. Furthermore, why should he be afraid of a young man who has just broken through to the Emperor realm? During this recent period, many rising stars had gained opportunities in the Shattered Star Sea and broken through their shackles to become Emperor realm masters. But how could these newly promoted emperors compare with veteran masters like him? Maybe they would stand a chance if they cultivated for another 30 to 50 years. Pushing his Emperor Qi madly, roars came out of Zhu Hong's 10,000 beast seal, causing the small sealed world to shake. Then, the 10,000 Beasts seal released several beams of light, which turned into different monster beasts in midair. All those monster beasts had a dense aura, and they were at least in the early stage of the 11th order. With Zhu Hong's overflowing Emperor Qi, these monster beasts charged out endlessly from the 10,000 Beasts seal and stampeded towards Yang Kai. The 10,000 Beasts seal was a special artifact that could seal the souls of fallen monster beasts and release them to fight against the enemy. The sealed monster beast souls retained most of their abilities from their past lives, and the more souls sealed into the 10,000 Beast seal, the more powerful it became. Ever since Zhu Hong broke through to the Emperor realm, he had been hunting monster beasts all over the Eastern Territory. There were 800 to 1,000 monster beast souls sealed inside the 10,000 Beast seal now, most of which were 11th order, while some were even 12th order. But even this was far from the limits of the 10,000 Beast seal as, like its name implied, it could seal 10,000 monster beast souls. If he really put forth all his might, ordinary first-order Emperor Realm Masters were no match for him. And it was exactly with the help of the 10,000 Beast seal that Zhu Hong could control Earth City and become its city lord. However, he was currently injured, and although he had been recuperating and recovering for some time now, he had not been restored to his peak, so he could not unleash the full power of the 10,000 Beast seal and was only able to summon some 11th order monster beast souls. But this was enough. As long as Yang Kai's actions could be restrained for a moment, that would be enough to create an opportunity for Zhu Tianqing to show him the consequences of offending the veteran masters. Previously he also used the same tactic when he joined hands with Zhu Tianqing to deal with Gao Xueting, so doing the same thing again would be a breeze. Hong hong hong. The endless army of monster beasts bared their fangs and roared at Yang Kai. There were all kinds of monster beasts. Some were flying in the sky, while some were running on the ground, and all of them were gathered into a formidable army. Yang Kai's eyes lit seeing how remarkable an artifact the 10,000 Beast seal was. Although this monster beast army was fierce, Yang Kai did not feel the slightest bit of fear, and with a wave of his hand, the myriad sword appeared. Swinging the sword, a beam of light slashed towards the army of monster beasts. Those are the souls of monster beasts. Normal attacks are ineffective as they don't have physical bodies. Watch out for an ambush. Gao Xueting's voice reached Yang Kai's ears. Even though it was inconvenient for her to move as she was hiding behind the barrier to heal, it did not prevent her from watching from the perspective of a spectator. She was surprised yet anxious when Yang Kai appeared. She was surprised because she did not expect to meet Yang Kai here, but on the other hand, she was anxious for Yang Kai's safety in this damned place. No matter how gifted he was still young after all. He couldn't win against Zhu Tianqing and Zhu Hong. Even she had suffered a great loss at their hands, so she naturally knew how powerful they were. If she was no match to them, how could the newly promoted Yang Kai be? Perhaps Yang Kai's achievements would surpass them in the future, but definitely not now. Her first thought was to ask Yang Kai to run. She knew that Yang Kai probably came here for her. She had no idea how he located her, but this was the only logical explanation as there was no such convenient coincidence in this world. However, since he was already here, he could not leave even if he wanted to. Gao Xueting was extremely shocked when she realized that Yang Kai was an Emperor Realm Master. She still remembered her first encounter with Yang Kai. He was just a first-order Dao Source Realm cultivator, accompanying Qin Zhaoyang to Azure Sun Temple to request for a quota to enter the Four Seasons realm with the bustling world token. But in just a few years, he had already reached the Emperor realm, his cultivation comparable to her own. This kind of cultivation speed was unprecedented. Her aptitude was considered phenomenal too. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for her to spy on the mysteries of the Emperor realm. But how long did it take for her cultivation to reach the Emperor realm from the First-Order Dao Source realm back then? 50 years? 100 years? She did not remember anymore. Even their temple master, Wen Zishan, could not be compared to Yang Kai in terms of cultivation speed. As for those geniuses in the sect, comparing them to him was like comparing a firefly with the bright moon. What opportunities did he get in Shattered Star Sea that made him grow up to such an extent? While Gao Xueting was shouting, Zhu Tianqing had taken advantage of Yang Kai's attention being attracted to the 10,000 Beasts seal. He flew over Yang Kai and slashed down with his blade. The power of his burning ocean of stars blade spread out in all directions, creating an image of stars all over the sky crashing downwards, in an instant enveloping Yang Kai. All of a sudden, Yang Kai seemed to be trapped in an illusion, being placed in the vast star sea, greatly aware of how small and insignificant he was. Yang Kai's actions were slightly delayed at this moment, and when he finally regained his senses, the ferocious blade of light was already about to reach his chest. Yang Kai's eyes narrowed slightly, a trace of panic and horror flashing across his bright eyes as he was hit directly by the sword wave. Next, the monster beast army rushed forward and stampeded over the place where Yang Kai was located. It could be seen that Yang Kai was torn to pieces by the raging momentum. "No!" Gao Shueting exclaimed, her pretty face draining of all color. Although she knew that Yang Kai couldn't be victorious against Zhu Tianqing and Zhu Hong with his current strength, she did not expect that he would just die like this. Her tender body trembled, unable to accept this cruel reality. A strong sense of guilt and anger built up in her heart, and her enchanting eyes turned scarlet red instantly. The purpose of Yang Kai coming here was absolutely for her, so how could Gao Shueting not feel guilty after watching him die here? Judging from Yang Kai's previous cultivation speed and heaven-defying aptitude, if he was given more time, he would become the brightest star of the star boundary eventually. He would be able to rise and shine brightly, making his name echo throughout every corner of the world. However, that bright future had just been destroyed. A young man with an endless future had his journey ended before he even had the chance to truly feel the power of the Emperor realm. Humph! Overconfident brat! Zhu Tianqing sneered and sheathed his blade while standing in the void. That little brat actually had more bark than bite. This city lord was wondering how strong he could be, but it turned out that he was just an embroidered pillow. Zhu Hong cackled mockingly. If he had known that Yang Kai was this weak, he would not have bothered helping Zhu Tianqing, as the latter could have easily won on his own. He now felt like he had wasted the strength that he had barely restored. Young people nowadays really do not know the immensity of heaven and earth. They're easily blinded by arrogance after having just some small achievements, and most forget that there is always someone better. There is always a higher heaven and a deeper earth. You're right, Brother Zhu. Such an arrogant junior needed to be taught a harsh lesson. Zhu Hong nodded in agreement. Both of you are indeed right. How about the two of you tell this young master exactly how high are the heavens and how deep is the earth then? Yang Kai's voice emerged once again, and this time, it came from behind Zhu Hong. Brother Zhu, watch out! Zhu Tianqing hurriedly exclaimed, his eyes bulging so large that they almost popped out of their sockets. There was Yang Kai, who was supposed to have been torn to pieces by their attacks, standing behind Zhu Hong and scathed with a broadsword in his hand that was radiating waves of emperor intent, and releasing a dreadfully vicious aura. He was going to stab Zhu Hong from behind, who was completely caught off guard. Zhu Hong jumped out of his skin. Despite his powerful emperor realm cultivation, he had not even noticed how Yang Kai appeared behind him. As if he could not believe this was happening, he turned to look at the place where Yang Kai formerly stood. There, he saw the corpse of Yang Kai fading away, nothing but an afterimage. Damn it! Zhu Hong's heart sank as he did not have the time to escape or turn around. Pushing his emperor chi madly, he roared as a bright layer of light filled his surroundings. The light was particularly blinding, especially at his back, and it could be seen that he had pushed his protective emperor chi to his limit. A violent impact hammered him in the next moment, and Zhu Hong only felt that his internal organs were shaken hard, making him extremely uncomfortable. An unstoppable aura sliced through his protective emperor chi and struck directly at the back of his body. With a cry, Zhu Hong spat a mouthful of blood. Using the force of the impact, he immediately rushed forward and distanced himself away from Yang Kai. An artifact armor? Yang Kai raised his brow and stared intently at the spot where he landed the blow on Zhu Hong's back, seeing a light science scale armor underneath his damaged robes. It was a high-grade artifact armor, and with Zhu Hong's mighty cultivation, Yang Kai's ambush failed to achieve its desired effect. How dare you backstab this city lord? Zhu Hong turned around and bellowed at Yang Kai with an angry glare, his face pale. If he was not wearing his artifact armor, he would have been seriously injured even if he did not die. What the hell is this brat? Fear grew in his heart after the incident, as he did not understand how Yang Kai could have such strength when he had just recently broken through to the Emperor realm. The secret technique Yang Kai had used to escape had caught both Zhu Tianqing and him off guard. Brother Zhu, fall back. This king will teach this boy a lesson. Seeing that Zhu Hong was injured again and his aura was unsteady, Zhu Tianqing advised him to stand aside instead of joining the fight with him. After a shout, his sword once again produced multiple blades of light that splashed towards Yang Kai like sea waves. Zhu Hong nodded heavily, but the anger in his heart was still erupting like a volcano. So while withdrawing, he quietly surged the power of the 10,000 Beasts seal and controlled the monster beast souls to charge towards Yang Kai again. It was shameful for him to be ambushed by a newly promoted emperor, and if he did not get revenge now, he would not have the face to call himself a man. The combined force of the two Emperor Realm Masters was monstrous and powerful, as if they had maddened deities. Gao Xueting, who just had a moment of relief, grew worried again. Previously, Yang Kai's reversal surprised her, and she realized that she had underestimated Yang Kai just like Zhu Tianqing and Zhu Hong did. But still, now he was going to face two enemies in the same realm alone. How could he possibly fight against them? Gao Xueting gritted her teeth, flipped her hand, and took out a jade bottle. She uncapped the bottle and poured out a scarlet spirit pill filled with a bloody aura. She hesitated for a moment, then raised her hand in an attempt to put the spirit pill into her mouth. Elder Gao, stop! Yang Kai hurriedly shouted to stop Gao Xueting. Gao Xueting was stunned, and she lifted her head and looked at Yang Kai in confusion. You're already heavily injured. If you take that mad blood pill now and forcefully stimulate your potential, I'm afraid it will damage your foundation beyond repair. Please don't take it. What's more, the quality of this mad blood pill is extremely poor, and there will definitely be harsh side effects from taking it. I don't know which alchemist refined this for you, but he is one hell of an irresponsible bastard. As she looked around, Gao Xueting saw Yang Kai flickering about as he engaged in a melee against the combined force of two Emperor Realm Masters. But even so, he still had enough leeway to pay attention to Gao Xueting and advise her in clear terms. Gao Xueting was utterly shocked by his capability when seeing this. It was not difficult to refine a mad blood pill, as it was just a Dao source-grade high-rank spirit pill, but the ingredients for it were quite rare. All the materials needed to refine the spirit pill were priceless Emperor-grade spirit medicines. Gao Xueting just happened to be very fortunate to have collected the appropriate materials, and then hired someone to refine one for safekeeping. Once the spirit pill had been consumed, her innate potential would be fully stimulated, and she would be able to exert the power of a second-order Emperor Realm Master even with just the cultivation of the first-order Emperor Realm. This was her trump card. Even when she was cornered by Zhu Hong and Zhu Tianqing, she resisted taking this pill, but now, she could not sit back and watch Yang Kai in danger. She did not expect Yang Kai to stop her when she took out the spirit pill. She smiled wryly. She knew that taking this mad blood pill would cause great damage to herself that may lead to instability in her foundation, and even the decline of her current realm or the destruction of her meridians. There was even a possibility it would rupture her dantian, crippling her cultivation permanently. But in this situation, she had no other hope except for the mad blood pill. A brat like you should take care of yourself before taking time to take care of others' affairs. Zhu Tianqing growled, the burning ocean of stars blade in his hand yearning to cleave a sea of stars into Yang Kai, who was dodging and evading every attack without fighting back. Although he was holding the advantage, for some reason Zhu Tianqing had a very strange feeling that sent chills down his spine, as if something bad was about to happen. Elder Gao, this disciple is fine. You must not take that mad blood pill. Yang Kai's erratic voice echoed in all directions. Gao Xueting's eyes brightened at Yang Kai's confident words. She nodded lightly. Good. I won't take it, just be careful. Don't overexert yourself and retreat to me immediately if all else fails. Yang Kai snorted loudly. This disciple is not what he used to be. Two trivial first-order emperors are nothing to me. Junior is simply too rampant with his words. This king will teach you how to show proper respect today. Zhu Tianqing was furious, and his power rose to another level. Zhu Hong's face was also green from rage, and without saying a word, he worked harder to activate the power of the 10,000 Beasts seal. The souls of monster beasts continuously shot out of the large seal, turned into phantom forms, and rushed towards Yang Kai. Suddenly, Yang Kai's figure froze at a certain place, and he stared towards Zhu Tianqing with a pair of icy eyes. Zhu Tianqing could not help but shudder at his stare as for some reason, the thought of escaping growing in his heart. He forced himself to resist the increasing fear and spurred a frenzy of sword waves towards Yang Kai. Suddenly, thousands of light explosions occurred, filling the sky above them. Yang Kai commented coldly, "This young master is afraid that you don't have the qualification to teach him how to show proper respect." He flicked his fingers as soon as he finished speaking. Long and narrow moon blades emerged leisurely. There were as many as several dozen of these moon blades, crisscrossing in midair, forming a net large enough to envelope the entire land as they shrank towards a certain point. Li Wuyi gave him a stone in which his understanding of the Tao of space was ingrained. In that 1 month, Yang Kai absorbed all the mysteries of the Tao of space contained inside that stone like a leech. Now, his attainment in the Tao of space had improved by leaps and bounds. Chi chi chi. The dark moon blades charged forward, like a dark web that devoured everything in its path, annihilating the thousands of sword lights, and even the monster beast souls Zhu Hong summoned were cut to pieces, reducing several dozen of them to points of light in an instant. What kind of ability is this? Zhu Tianqing was shocked, retreating continuously as he bellowed. He could clearly feel the deadly threat of the moonblade net, and knew that he would be severely injured if not dead if he was hit by them head-on. Instead of meeting the attack directly, he would rather run as far as he could. In a rush, he raised his blade again to resist the attack. But he was horrified to realize that no matter how many blades he produced, the black net could not be cut apart. In the blink of an eye, the big black net was right in front of him. Zhu Tianqing's face turned pale, and the urge to panic and escape swelled up inside him. At this moment, the space around him suddenly seemed to freeze, locking him firmly in place. "Space principles!" Zhu Tianqing exclaimed, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. He recalled some information disclosed by Yin Lushang from the Netherworld sect only now. Yin Lushang had said that this little brat named Yang Kai was proficient in the Tao of space. It was just that Zhu Tianqing did not take this warning seriously. After all, the Tao of space was one of the most difficult Taos to cultivate. How could someone he had never heard of before be proficient in it? Countless people in the star boundary dreamt of cultivating the Tao of space, but how many actually succeeded? There was only one, Li Wuyi from Spirit Beast Island. As a trivial junior, even if Yang Kai grasped the basics of the Tao of space, it should not have been enough to be used against enemies in battle. But at this moment, Zhu Tianqing realized that Yang Kai's accomplishments in the Tao of space were beyond his imagination. Even if it was not on par with Li Wuyi, it was not far off. There's no point in fighting. Everyone knew that cultivators who were proficient in the Tao of space were the hardest to kill, because even if they were placed in a life-threatening situation, they could easily escape. No wonder he was able to enter this small sealed world. As an Emperor Realm Master who is proficient in the Tao of space, entering a small sealed world like this that had just been opened would be as simple as breathing. As those distracting thoughts flashed across Zhu Tianqing's mind, blood seemed to stop circulating around his body and his hands and feet grew as cold as ice. In this critical moment, he bit his tongue and spouted a mouthful of blood essence, causing his aura to surge. At the crucial moment of life and death, he activated an extremely powerful secret technique. This finally allowed him to move his body. Chi chi chi. A strange noise was heard, and together with Zhu Tianqing's screams, blood suddenly shot out like a fountain. Zhu Hong looked around frantically and was stunned. He saw that one of Zhu Tianqing's arms was cut off right above his shoulder. The cut was neat and clean, and from the cross-section of the wound, Zhu Tianqing's violently beating heart could be seen. "See?" Zhu Hong gasped, unable to believe his eyes. What was going on? He clearly saw Yang Kai being forced into a corner by Zhu Tianqing. So how did Zhu Tianqing suddenly receive such damage? He could not help feeling a little dizzy, which also caused the monster beast souls that flew out of the 10,000 beasts seal to fall into disarray, scurrying about like headless flies in agitation. Yang Kai, we will meet again and this king will remember you. One day, this king will rip your corpse into 10,000 pieces in vengeance for this lost arm. Zhu Tianqing bellowed with a ferocious face and immediately turned around to fly towards the entrance. He wanted to escape. It was undeniably the wisest choice. With one of his arms cut off, he suffered heavy losses from Yang Kai. It would be detrimental to him if he continued to fight with his strength reduced. What's more, Yang Kai was a cultivator who was proficient in the Tao of space, so there was no way to kill him in the first place. It was only natural for Zhu Tianqing to escape first. He would go back to the Holy Land and gather reinforcements first. As long as Yang Kai was still in the Eastern Territory, they would find him even if they had to turn the entire territory upside down, trap him, then shred his corpse. Zhu Tianqing was cursing both out loud and in his heart, and his whole body was burning in rage like an erupting volcano. Yang Kai did not even chase after Zhu Tianqing. However, instead choosing to stand aside and watch him escape with a strange mocking grin on his face. Zhu Hong was frozen for a moment, but seeing that the situation was deteriorating, he quickly put away the 10,000 beast seal and followed Zhu Tianqing. He was already badly injured, and now that Zhu Tianqing had run off, he would just be courting death if he remained. Cursing endlessly in his heart, he resented his hundreds of years of friendship with Zhu Tianqing. It was too unkind of him to have escaped without any concern for Zhu Hong. During such times, the only person he could trust would be himself. The two left hastily, one after the other, and arrived at the entrance of this small sealed world in the blink of an eye. With one arm chopped off, Zhu Tianqing could only endure the pain in his heart and perform the necessary hand seals with one hand to open the entrance. He had created a secret entrance before he came in, which could only be revealed with a secret method, for Zhu Hong to follow after him. So, it was also convenient for him to leave this small world. However, even after sending out the seals, the entrance did not open. Zhu Tianqing's face changed and the color suddenly drained from his face as he gulped, as if he realized a terrifying truth. Zhu Hong, who still had not realized the situation, urged vigorously, "Brother Zhu, quickly open the entrance, what are you doing?" Zhu Tianqing answered darkly, "It can't be opened." "Why not?" Zhu Hong was shocked, fighting the strong urge to slap Zhu Tianqing to death. It was impossible to tolerate a screw-up at this crucial moment. Ha ha ha! Yang Kai appeared abruptly behind the two of them, looking at them with a smile on his face. After this young master came in, he sealed up the entrance. Without this young master's approval, no one else can access this place again. What? Zhu Hong was horror-struck. How? How can you have such ability? Ordinary people couldn't seal off the entrance to a small sealed world as they wished. Zhu Tianqing looked devastated as his heart dropped into the depths of the abyss and continued to sink. He only spoke in a bitter voice a moment later. "Brother Zhu, this little brat is proficient in the Tao of space." As if struck by lightning, Zhu Hong was dumbfounded and froze in place. Yang Kai snorted coldly. "We will meet again? Elder Zhu, this young master doesn't like to procrastinate. Didn't you want to teach me how to show proper respect? Come here, hurry up and teach me a lesson. This young master is waiting." Zhu Tianqing's spirits fell to the bottom of the valley, and his mouth tasted bitter after being mocked so ruthlessly by Yang Kai. Unfortunately, he could not refute a word. The light in his eyes was dim as he slumped. "Little brother, what happened today is our fault, but no permanent damage has been done. How about we just let this matter go?" Yang Kai's face hardened. "This young master is not very good at showing proper respect. Are you going to teach him a lesson or not?" Zhu Tianqing grew agitated. "Why insist on being so overbearing? If you're not teaching, I will. Don't go too far and burn your bridges." Zhu Tianqing's teeth chattered violently while glaring at Yang Kai ferociously. Seeing this, Zhu Hong barked too. "That's right. Even if you are proficient in the Tao of space, you are still on your own while Brother Zhu and I can fight together. Even if we can't beat you, do you think we can't self-destruct? Yang Kai curled his lips disdainfully. Like you have the chance to self-destruct. Saying so, he turned solemn and swiftly performed a set of hand seals. A mysterious and profound aura began to radiate from Yang Kai's form. What are you doing? Zhu Tianqing roared in alarm. He instinctively felt that danger was coming. Yang Kai replied in a deep voice, "What am I doing? I'm of course going to release my ultimate skill and kill the both of you. Let me tell you a simple truth. The two of you can do nothing against this young master's ultimate skill. You are all doomed to be slaughtered by me. So if you really want to self-destruct, quickly do it now before it's too late." Ah! Zhu Tianqing and Zhu Hong gasped and staggered back. They were dreadfully afraid of Yang Kai after he made such a declaration with such seriousness, where his face was filled with murderous intent. No one would want to self-destruct unless it was a last resort. Most of the time, those who said they would were just bluffing. They did not expect him to be totally unaffected by their threat, and was ready to release his ultimate skill. The hand seals that he was performing were so mysterious and unique that Zhu Hong and Zhu Tianqing could not see through their purpose at all. But one thing was for certain, the skill he was preparing was incredibly powerful. "Brother Zhu, we need to go all out." Zhu Tianqing gritted his teeth with a decisive face. Good. Zhu Hong also knew that there was no way out at this moment. Given Yang Kai's aggression and determination to kill Zhu Tianqing, and he would not be his opponents if they continued to have reservations in fear. They could only give it their all in a last-ditch effort to survive. Having steeled themselves, the two pushed their Emperor Qi fiercely and roared. Blood gushed from the wound on Zhu Tianqing's shoulder from the pressure of his surging power. It was uncertain how many liters of blood he lost, but his face was as pale as paper. In an instant, their auras reached their peak. Countless beast roars emerged from the 10,000 beast seal, while the burning ocean of stars blade vibrated fiercely and numerous sword waves shot out from it. All of a sudden, Yang Kai's hands stopped. He slowly pushed his palms forward with a solemn face, whispering, "Time flows on infinitely, like a mighty stream, like an unending dream." Time seemed to freeze at that moment. Hong Long Long, the time fly seal appeared in a brilliant flash, completely enveloping Zhu Tianqing and Zhu Hong. Both of them widened their eyes as they felt like their lives rapidly passed before their very eyes. In just a blink, it seemed like dozens of years had suddenly gone by. As time continued racing by, the pair's momentum, which had been at its peak, rapidly deflated. At the same time, their figures rapidly aged, and their vitalities waned. Even their hair began turning gray. Within a breath, the two masters, who had at most looked middle-aged, turned into decrepit old men who already had one foot into the grave. The flowing time Great Emperor's divine ability, which involved time principles, was not something that Zhu Tianqing and Zhu Hong could resist, on top of their severe wounds. When Yang Kai was just a third-order Tao Source Realm cultivator, he had used this skill to defeat a third-order Emperor Realm Master Soul, though it was just a wisp that manifested through a soul descent. Now, Yang Kai was an Emperor Realm Master, and his strength was vastly superior to that time. Suffering from this ability, the two old men had totally lost their combat strength. "Get in here." Yang Kai snorted coldly and his eyes shone in a strange brilliance. With a push of his spiritual energy, he threw the pair which had lost the ability to resist into the sealed world bead. The embodiment had long waited for this moment in the small sealed world. Once Yang Kai threw them in, the embodiment immediately surged his power and covered them with one hand, yelling viciously, "Heaven-devouring battle law!" The fate of Zhu Hong and Zhu Tianqing was nothing more than to be devoured. The stationary time began to flow again, and the small sealed world was restored to peace. Inside the barrier of the medicine garden, Gao Shueting was flabbergasted, and could not regain her senses for a long time. The time fly's seal had also affected her to a certain extent, causing a temporary confusion in her mind, and by the time she recovered from the chaotic state, Zhu Hong and Zhu Tianqing had vanished. She only saw Yang Kai turning around and flying towards her. Gao Shueting gaped at him with her jaw dropped, subconsciously opening the medicine garden barrier for him. It was easy to operate the barrier, otherwise, she would not be able to hide inside here in the first place. Elder Gao, how are your injuries? Yang Kai hurriedly asked as he reached her side. Gao Shueting looked up at him with a slightly complicated expression on her pretty face. Her eyes examined him up and down, as if she wanted to know if this was really the young man she knew. Just a few years ago, there was a huge gap in strength between him and her, but now it seemed that she now needed to look up to him. Elder Gao. Seeing that Gao Shueting did not say a word, Yang Kai could not help shouting again. Only then did Gao Shueting's lost eyes focus, and after a soft cough, she answered, "They're not light, but neither are they fatal. I'll be fine after some rest." "What about the two of them? Did you chop them up into tiny pieces?" "But even if they were chopped into pieces, there should be some traces left. However, it was like they simply vanished from sight for no reason." "Of course they are dead." Yang Kai grinned. "Elder Gao, you don't need to be bothered about them. The death of those two scum is not worth pitying." Gao Shueting nodded in relief and sighed. "You've grown a lot. Much more than any of us had expected." Yang Kai scratched his head. "This little brat could only achieve success today thanks to the support and care of all my seniors." Gao Shueting replied lightly, "It doesn't have much to do with others. You worked hard yourself to achieve this strength." After saying so, she coughed again. "Elder Gao, what's important now is for you to heal yourself. I will stand guard for you here," Yang Kai said with concern. "Good." Gao Shueting did not say anything more and simply closed her eyes, focusing on adjusting her breathing. During the battle between Yang Kai and the other two, she would not have sat back and watched if she had any strength left to use. Could be seen that her injuries were quite serious. Now that the disaster had been eliminated, she naturally could not afford to delay any longer. Gao Shueting's breathing soon calmed down. Only then did Yang Kai have the time to look around. This small sealed world had been completely closed by him, so no one could enter without his permission, and there was no need to worry about Gao Shueting. He gained tremendous interest in this strange plot of land, which composed a giant ancient medicine garden. Looking around the medicine gardens, there were 2 square plots with at least 300 spirit medicines planted in each. Every herb here was emperor grade and had a medicinal age above 10,000 years. Yang Kai was exhilarated by the scene that was captured in his eyes, unable to restrain his uplifted emotion. A 7-colored ginseng. It's even produced multiple rings of color. It must be at least 50,000 years old. Profound heavenly thunder flower. Its stamen is golden. This swaying light enlightenment fruit. How can it be as big as my fist? How did it grow like this? Extreme essence dragon saliva grass. Isn't this already extinct? 9-petal blue jade flower. Those spirit medicines were like naked beauties in Yang Kai eyes, swaying and displaying the best view of their bodies, arousing him so much that his eyes were glowing. As an alchemist, nothing could make him happier than this scene. Plots of mature spirit medicine were laid out in front of him, and he could just collect them for free. Only an alchemist could understand this kind of feeling. He continuously teleported here and there in the medicine garden, dancing excitedly. If he were not afraid of disturbing Gao Shueting's rest, he would have laughed out loud like a madman. And these emperor-grade herbs were just from these 2 square plots. There were actually more than 10 square plots here, but the other spirit medicines must have been collected by Gao Shueting and the others. In other words, most spirit medicines were in the space rings of Gao Shueting, Zhu Tianqing, and Zhu Hong. What Yang Kai was seeing here was just a small part. Many of the spirit medicines he saw were legendary herbs that were thought to already be extinct, but they were actually blooming healthily here. Yang Kai's face changed suddenly as he stared intently at a certain fruit tree that was about half a person's height. The fruit tree was filled with radiance, as if it was carved from the most exquisite jade, shimmering magnificently. On top of the fruit tree there was a white fist-sized fruit. The shape of this fruit was extremely odd, almost like a tiny shrunken person, with complete limbs, body and head. Not only that, there were even clear facial features. Yang Kai's eyes suddenly filled with enthusiasm as he exclaimed in pure shock, "Flesh incarnation fruit! There was a flesh incarnation fruit here." Yang Kai furiously rubbed his eyes to make sure he did not see wrongly, but even upon re-examination, there was no doubt a flesh incarnation fruit was presented in front of him. Exactly the same as the information recorded in the jade slip left by Gong Sun Mu, the third disciple of Wondrous Pill Great Emperor. The flesh incarnation fruit was the primary material for refining the flesh incarnation pill. Flesh incarnation pill was a heaven-defying spirit pill that could reshape one's physical body. If a cultivator was killed, but his or her soul had not been extinguished, that cultivator could rebuild his or her body by using a flesh incarnation pill, essentially granting them a new life. Not even the immortal tree possessed such a miraculous effect. Although the immortal tree could bring someone back from the brink of death, and even allow one to obtain an immortal and indestructible form, it could not reshape one's physique from only a soul. This was the heaven-defying effect of the flesh incarnation fruit. Like the soul-warming lotus and immortal tree, this fruit only existed in ancient records, with no one in the current era having seen it before. Yang Kai did not expect that he would be lucky enough to encounter a flesh incarnation fruit in this ancient medicine garden. With this flesh incarnation fruit, it meant that he could refine the flesh incarnation pill, and with flesh incarnation pill, it meant that he could fulfill the promise that he made to Tianyan. Senior Tianyan was the great emperor of the divine Ascension mirror, who had been a soul avatar since birth and never possessed his own physique. When Yang Kai was training in the divine Ascension mirror, he told Tianyan that he would refine a flesh incarnation pill from a flesh incarnation fruit for him one day, so that he could experience the feeling of having a physical body, release himself from the shackles of divine Ascension mirror, and see the outside world. Tianyan seemed to be immensely excited about this matter too. But how could it be so easy to find a flesh incarnation fruit? However, there was now one right in front of Yang Kai. Yang Kai's face turned solemn, and condensing his emperor chi into both hands, he cautiously grasped at the flesh incarnation fruit. He plucked the fruit lightly, and the flesh incarnation fruit plopped into his palm immediately. Yang Kai quickly placed it into the jade box he had prepared beforehand, and after placing several barriers around it, he put it into his space ring. Phew! Yang Kai let out a sigh of relief. With this flesh incarnation fruit, he would have a good chance to refine the flesh incarnation pill, but he would need to improve his alchemy skills first. Although he was now an emperor-grade alchemist, he did not have much experience in refining emperor-grade spirit medicines, so if he hastily tried to refine the flesh incarnation fruit, his chances of success would be quite low. This might be the one and only flesh incarnation fruit left in the world, so if the refinement failed and the raw materials were destroyed, Yang Kai's would definitely develop a kind of heart demon, and it may even affect his alchemy abilities in the future. Fortunately, there were bounteous emperor-grade herbs here, so he could use some of the relatively low-value spirit medicines for practice to improve his alchemy skills before confidently refining the flesh incarnation pill. After a moment of inspection, though, Yang Kai found that all the spirit medicines in this medicine garden were invaluable. Nevertheless, the flesh incarnation fruit still stood out from the rest in terms of rarity and value. He immediately started collecting the rest. There were only 2 medicine gardens with a few hundred herbs planted in them, but it still took Yang Kai more than 2 hours to collect them all. There were still about 20 trees left in place, including the flesh incarnation fruit tree. There were numerous buds and flowers remaining on these fruit trees, so it was not impossible for them to bear new fruits after a few hundred or 1,000 years, so Yang Kai did not dare to touch any of these trees. After doing this, Yang Kai took a look at Gao Shueting and found that she was still focused on healing her injuries, and it seemed that she would take a long time to wake up. Yang Kai was not in a hurry, so he simply sent his divine sense into the sealed world bead and retrieved Zhu Hong's and Zhu Tianqing's space rings. As expected, there was a large number of emperor-grade spirit medicines inside their space rings, most likely collected from this ancient medicine garden. In addition, there were many valuable treasures in these rings, enough for Yang Kai to make a fortune. The emperor artifacts, the burning ocean of stars blade and the 10,000 beasts seal, that belonged to the two also fell into Yang Kai's hands. The burning ocean of stars blade did not interest Yang Kai much as, although it appeared to be very powerful, He did not primarily use such weapons and had no plans to refine it. Besides, refining an Emperor artifact would not greatly improve his strength. Likewise, the burning ocean of Stars blade could not be considered a broadsword, so it was unsuitable for Zhang Ruoxi. On the contrary, Yang Kai was more interested in the 10,000 Beasts seal. This artifact was not an ordinary Emperor artifact. It seemed to be able to seal the souls of fallen monster beasts, and then could release them during a battle to fight one's enemies without great consumption of the owner's strength. This could be given to Zhang Ruoxi. Although Zhang Ruoxi seemed to prefer swords, the 10,000 Beasts seal was powerful, and it was definitely a good treasure for her. As long as Zhang Ruoxi could refine it, her strength would definitely increase by leaps and bounds. Considering all this, Yang Kai pushed his spiritual energy to erase Zhu Hong's soul imprint from the 10,000 Beasts seal. After a while, there was a flash of light, and the 10,000 Beasts seal became gray and dull. Yang Kai then tossed it into his space ring, reminding himself to give it to Zhang Ruoxi when he left the place. After waiting for a while, Gao Shueting still showed no signs of waking up, so Yang Kai took out his alchemy furnace and some Emperor-grade herbs, and began refining on the spot. A day later, Yang Kai, who was concentrating on alchemy, suddenly noticed that someone was watching him. His expression became alert and glanced to his side without stopping his hands, only to meet with Gao Shueting's elegant and delicate eyes. Feeling guilty that she had interrupted Yang Kai's alchemy, Gao Shueting did not speak and simply motioned him to continue. The worst thing that one could do to an alchemist during alchemy was to disturb them. Gao Shueting had known Yang Kai was an alchemist for a long time. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to refine the extraordinary treasure pill when he was in the Four Seasons realm. She felt a little uneasy knowing that her gaze interfered with Yang Kai's focus when he stole a glance at her. On the contrary, Yang Kai did not seem to be affected and just smiled broadly at her. Elder Gao, wait a moment. This disciple will finish the pill condensing step soon, and will be able to speak to you freely as soon as the pill is done. Having said so, Yang Kai immediately turned solemn and immersed his focus into alchemy again. Gao Shueting continued watching in amazement. A mysterious pill condensing technique was performed by Yang Kai, one that had extremely perplexing hand seals and seemed to harmonize extremely well with the heavenly way. Gao Shueting was astonished as her beautiful eyes suddenly glowed with a strange light, observing Yang Kai's movements firmly, unwilling to let slip a single motion. She discovered that Yang Kai's alchemy's technique could actually stimulate deep thoughts on her martial Tao and show her an unseen side of the heavenly way. It was as though all her understanding of martial Tao was being consolidated as she watched. An unbelievable experience. As one of the top sects in the Southern Territory, Azure Sun Temple naturally had its own Emperor-grade alchemist. Although there was only one, he was nonetheless still an Emperor-grade alchemist. Gao Shueting once had the honor of observing this Emperor-grade alchemist perform alchemy from a distance, but compared to Yang Kai's alchemy technique, the temple's alchemist seemed rather unsightly and incomparably clumsy. That alchemist could be described as a child flailing a hoe wildly in the field, while Yang Kai's alchemy could be described as a warrior wielding a sword, dancing in the moonlight. The two were not comparable at all. Who did he learn alchemy from? How can he be this accomplished at such a young age? Not only that, but he has also entered the Emperor realm. Gao Shueting was shaken as she suddenly realized that all those so-called genius disciples were completely eclipsed by Yang Kai's current achievements. Even the children of the great emperors could not compare with him. Time seemed to pass by quickly, but it also seemed to have slowed down. Just when Gao Shueting was immersed in a peculiar sentiment, her resonance with the heavenly way and martial Tao suddenly disappeared. She was slightly startled, and when she fixed her eyes on Yang Kai, he was already performing another technique, bellowing, "Condense!" Ding-a-ling-a-ling. Suddenly, a clear and sweet sound emerged from within the dainty alchemy furnace. Yang Kai turned his head to listen to it, and his brow furrowed slightly, as if he was a little dissatisfied with the results of his alchemy. Gao Shueting couldn't hide her surprise seeing this. Although she was not an alchemist, she knew that this spirit pill should have been successfully refined. From the scent wafting out of the furnace, it was easy to infer that this spirit pill was Emperor grade, and the quality should not be low. Is he still not satisfied? What extent does he need to reach to be satisfied? Yang Kai stretched out his hand and patted the alchemy furnace, causing the lid to fly off and 3 round and fragrant spirit pills to zoom out, where Yang Kai promptly caught them and sealed them into a jade bottle. After taking a look, Yang Kai curled his lips and threw the bottle into the space ring. Turning his head, he looked at Gao Xueting with a smile and said, "Sorry for making Elder Gao wait for so long. How are you feeling?" "I've almost completely recovered," Gao Xueting replied. "It was not a fatal injury anyway." After a pause, she wondered, "How did you know that I was here? And you even came here directly?" Yang Kai answered, "Junior Sister Lu Wen sent me a message." He briefly explained the entire journey from how he was passing by Earth City to receiving Lu Wen's request for help. After listening, Gao Xueting smiled. "It seems that I wasn't meant to die here today. Who would have known that you would pass by Earth City at just the right time?" Her smile seemed to cause thousands of flowers to suddenly bloom, and the whole world became a shade dimmer. She was a cold woman, and she rarely smiled, so this was Yang Kai's first time seeing her smile since he had known her. Yang Kai could not help but stare blankly. Gao Xueting quickly retrieved her smile at his abnormal expression, looking a little uncomfortable. Yang Kai urged her, "Elder Gao, you should smile more. It's beautiful. Have some respect. Stop your flattery." Gao Xueting snorted coldly. Yang Kai grinned. "I can guarantee that if you smiled at Temple Master Wen that way, he would definitely be mesmerized by your beauty." Gao Xueting snorted. "Mesmerized? More like he would immediately ask me if I had fallen into cultivation dissonance, and then force a purifying spirit pill into my mouth. Then I would spit that spirit pill right back at his face." Yang Kai's jaw dropped. How could Temple Master Wen be so unchivalrous? He imagined the scene she just described and was speechless for a while. But from the tone of Gao Xueting's words, it seemed that this had happened before. Cold sweat beaded on his forehead and he wisely changed the subject. "By the way, Elder Gao, this disciple has prepared something for you." "Something for me?" Gao Xueting was surprised and asked suspiciously, "What is it?" Yang Kai took out a jade bottle and handed it over. "Here." Gao Xueting took it and opened the cap to look inside. It was a round and red spirit pill, exuding a rich blood aura. Mad blood pill. Gao Xueting's beautiful eyes lit up. She already possessed a mad blood pill and had wanted to take it to stimulate her potential to help Yang Kai, who was under siege yesterday. But Yang Kai stopped her in time, so she recognized it at a glance. This is a high-grade mad blood pill. Its effects will be better than your original one by 30%, and after taking it, as long as you only exert your strength within a stick of incense, the backlash will not be too harsh. You would be able to fully restore after a long rest, and it will not damage your foundation. Disciple can only refine this level of mad blood pill at the moment, so keep this one for now and only use it if absolutely necessary. I will refine a better one in the future to replace this one. A better one. Gao Xueting was speechless. This was already a high-rank mad blood pill, so what could be better? This was already the highest quality for normal mad blood pills. Any higher meant that it would either have to have formed pill veins or pill clouds, but that was not a feat one could easily achieve. Yang Kai had mentioned that her mad blood pill was of low quality and made by a lousy alchemist. He was obviously worried that Gao Xueting's foundation might be damaged from taking that mad blood pill. So he made another one for her. Considering all these, a warm feeling filled her heart. The mad blood pill was not difficult to refine, but finding the materials was difficult because they were all emperor-grade spirit medicines, many of them rare and extremely hard to source. Back then, Gao Xueting was lucky to gather all the materials for the mad blood pill and requested the emperor-grade alchemist in the temple to refine a furnace of it. Unfortunately, only one mad blood pill was successfully produced from the furnace, and it was a low-grade one. But now, Yang Kai actually made a high-grade mad blood pill. Its value was far greater than the previous one. Looking at the dregs on the ground, Gao Xueting immediately realized that Yang Kai had refined many furnaces and picked the best product for her. "Elder Gao, just throw away your old mad blood pill. That thing should never be taken," Yang Kai advised solemnly. Gao Shueting nodded in agreement and took out the jade bottle that contained the mad blood pill from her space ring. She put the spirit pill on her palm and crushed it into dust. Then, she placed the new one made by Yang Kai into her jade bottle. Are you relieved now? Gao Shueting looked at him. Yang Kai grinned. If Elder Gao wants any Emperor-grade spirit pill in the future, just look for me. Disciple is skillful and outstanding in alchemy, and can give a 20% discount to Elder Gao. Gao Shueting chuckled. You're already an Emperor Realm Master. Don't be shameless and make a fool of yourself like the one surnamed one. The corner of Yang Kai's mouth twitched. So, Elder Gao has always regarded Temple Master One as a fool. Gao Shueting snorted lightly, turned and looked around. I see that there are still some spirit medicines left in the medicine garden. Why didn't you collect them? What's the purpose of leaving them there? She changed the subject. After asking, she seemed to recall something and continued with a realization. I see. Alchemists usually avoid cutting roots when collecting spirit medicines and deliberately leave stems behind to promote future growth? Yang Kai nodded. It's true that this is the standard practice, but that only applies to some immature herbs. This medicine garden has existed for a long time, and all the spirit medicines are already mature, so we can pluck all of them. Then why did you still leave some of them here? Gao Shueting was puzzled. Yang Kai smiled wryly. These spirit medicines cannot be touched. In this world, once some spirit medicines are harvested, no matter how well preserved they will lose their efficacies and wither in a very short time. So, most of the time, you can only collect these spirit medicines when you are prepared to use them. Elder Gao, some of the herbs that you collected before are actually like this. Gao Shueting was shocked at the information, and she hurriedly checked her space ring, only to discover that 2 herbs had seriously deteriorated already. Ah, I see. She sighed with regret. It was just more than 1 day ago that she collected these 2 spirit medicines, but they already lost so much of their medicinal efficacies. If they were given another 2 to 3 days, perhaps they would just turn into dead dregs. Isn't it a waste for these spirit medicines then? Gao Shueting looked at the 20 or more exceptionally rare spirit medicines in the medicine garden. It's fine. Yang Kai smiled faintly, but he was not sincere with his words. It was fine for him to leave other spirit medicines here. At most, he could just come back to collect them if he needed them in the future. However, it was dreadfully hard for him to let go of the flesh incarnation fruit tree. There were already 3 flowers blooming on this particular tree, and although it was unknown how many years it would take to produce a new fruit, the thought of giving up on such a rare extinct prize pained Yang Kai's heart. Fortunately, he had the sealed world bead, and if he handled things properly, he still had a great chance to move the entire medicine garden into it. However, Gao Shueting was still here. He had to first send her out of this place if he wanted to collect this place. If Elder Gao feels well enough, let's set out. Junior sister Lu Wan is still waiting outside. Yang Kai suggested. Good. When they got to the entrance, Yang Kai waved, sending out several threads of Emperor Qi to remove the restriction he placed before opening the void corridor and leaving the small world with Gao Shueting. A pungent smell of blood irritated their noses as they arrived outside, and looking around, several corpses were lying fulfill in the wilderness, their body parts scattered about. All of these people had apparently died horrifyingly. Gao Shueting was startled as she thought there was an ambush outside. However, she soon saw only 2 young women standing there quietly. One of them looked unfamiliar to her. She was young, about 20 years old, but she had a powerful third-order Dao source realm cultivation. Meanwhile, the other woman was the temple disciple Lu Wan, but she seemed to be a little frightened as her face was slightly pale. Seeing Gao Shueting and Yang Kai appear, the 2 women's eyes lit up and came up to greet them. Elder Gao! Joy overflowed from Lu Wan's eyes. Her face flushed red, as if she saw a long-lost family member. Zhang Ruo, she beamed. Elder sister Lu can now be relieved. No one can beat Sir. Lu Wan smiled in embarrassment. Many thanks, senior brother Yang, for your help. Yang Kai responded, You're welcome, junior sister Lu. I'm also a temple disciple. I'm duty-bound if an elder is in trouble. Gao Shueting remarked. Anyway, I really owe it to you this time. Otherwise I would have been. She could not help shivering as recalling the crisis before still left her a bit unnerved. Shaking her head, she pressed on with a soft voice. Since everything is over, I'm planning to return back to the temple. Lu Wen, follow me. Understood. Lu Wen was delighted. Although she was ordered by the temple to collect all kinds of information in the Eastern Territory, she had been wandering alone for a while and often missed her brothers and sisters back in the sect, as well as the scenery of her hometown. Now that Gao Shueting wanted to take her back to the temple, it was natural that she was overjoyed. How about you, Yang Kai? Gao Shueting turned to him and asked. Since Yang Kai appeared in the Eastern Territory, he must have something to deal with. Therefore, she did not rashly ask him if he wanted to return to the Southern Territory with her. As she had guessed, Yang Kai shook his head. I have a place to go to find a friend. Gao Shueting nodded. Then you should be careful. Even though you are an Emperor Realm Master now and your strength is not weak, there are many talented and powerful people in this world. A lot of them are not as simple as they seem. Disciple knows, Yang Kai replied respectfully. If you have time, come back to the temple and have a look. You are still an in-name disciple in the temple after all. I will. He definitely would want to return to Azure Sun Temple one day, because he still had to go to the Divine Ascension Mirror to fulfill his promise with Tianyan. Then, Gao Shueting and Lu Wen departed. About 100 kilometers away, Lu Wen asked Gao Shueting quizzically, Elder, that senior brother Yang is so strong, but why is he just an in-name disciple in the temple? With Yang Kai's strength, he was more than qualified to be a sect elder. At first, she thought that Yang Kai was one of the top disciples like Xiaxia and Xiao Baiyi, but it turned out that he was just an in-name disciple. After pondering for a moment, Gao Shueting replied, because he didn't join the temple of his own free will. Even the Azure Sun Golden Token was given to him forcefully by this queen. Lu Wen immediately lost her ability to think. On the wasteland, in front of the entrance of the small sealed world, Yang Kai watched Gao Shueting and Lu Wen leave. Only when they were out of sight did he take out the 10,000 Beasts seal and toss it to Zhang Ruoxi. Refine this and use it for now. Zhang Ruoxi caught it and took a close look at it before immediately squealing in joy. Many thanks, sir, for this great treasure. Yang Kai had never given her any treasures before, but Lu Yan, Hua Qingxi, and the embodiment each had their own emperor artifact, all of which were given to them by Yang Kai. Although Zhang Ruoxi kept quiet about it, she was looking forward to such a gift finding its way to her eventually. She knew that Yang Kai did not have a habit of favoring one over another. It was just that he had not found anything suitable for her yet. Nevertheless, she did not expect Yang Kai to give her one so soon. As long as it was given by Yang Kai, it was a treasure to her even if it was a lump of iron, let alone a strange emperor artifact stamp seal. Zhang Ruoxi flipped the 10,000 Beast seal in her hands over and over with a bright smile. The more she looked at it, the more she liked it. Yang Kai glanced at her and commented, You seem to display a lot of bloodthirst when you battle. The next time you fight with others, you should try to control it a little. After hearing this, Zhang Ruoxi stuck out her tongue. I also don't know what happened. As soon as I start fighting with someone, I feel like I turn into a different person, and I seem to have scared Sister Lu Wen. Previously, Lu Wen's face was bloodless because she could not stand the bloody fight that had just taken place. She had fought and killed before too, so this kind of scene naturally should not be frightening to her. Therefore, her fear must have mainly stemmed from Zhang Ruoxi herself. Yang Kai had no idea why Zhang Ruoxi would act so violently at such a small age. It would not be strange if this kind of aura appeared on a bloodthirsty murderer, but it concerned Yang Kai that Zhang Ruoxi possessed such cruelty within her. The only explanation he could think of was Zhang Ruoxi's bloodline. If he ever had another chance to see Duan Hongchen, he must ask about it. Otherwise, the cruelty of Zhang Ruoxi may affect her character in the future, which would be a disaster if she turned into an emotionless murderer. Sir, where are we going now? Zhang Ruoxi asked. We're not going anywhere until I'm done here. Saying so, Yang Kai opened the entrance of the small sealed world again, stretched out his hand, and grabbed Zhang Ruoxi to enter with him. Apart from the 20 remaining trees and the few spirit medicines that could not be harvested, there was nothing more left in the ancient medicine garden except exceedingly rich world energy. Yang Kai asked Zhang Ruoxi to find herself a place to rest. Then he went straight to the 2 medicine gardens. After observing for a while, Yang Kai made a decision. Pushing his Emperor Qi, Yang Kai formed a seal with his hands and began releasing streams of his power into the ground. Although Yang Kai's actions were swift, he was extremely careful to avoid damaging anything. Even if Yang Kai was already an Emperor Realm Master, he still sweated profusely after working for an hour nonstop. He seemed to have exhausted a tremendous amount of energy. However, Yang Kai had managed the preliminary step properly, so the rest would be much easier. After a moment of meditation while sitting cross-legged, he regained some of his strength and got up again. He madly surged his divine sense next, and like a tide, it enveloped the 2 medicine gardens in front of him at once. Then, Yang Kai stomped his foot fiercely and bellowed, "Rise!" The entire small sealed world shook and rumbled as the 2 squares of the medicine garden rose up slowly under the support of a tremendous force. Since it was impossible to harvest the remaining trees and spirit medicines without damaging them, Yang Kai figured he could just collect the entire medicine gardens instead. Such an insane plan could only be accomplished by Yang Kai, since he possessed the sealed world bead that could easily accommodate the 2 gardens. Anyone else would have no choice but to sigh and lament their loss. Hong Long Long. Yang Kai enveloped the medicine gardens with his divine sense and lifted them into the sky. They resembled 2 miniature floating islands as he sent them into the sealed world bead and placed them right beside his own medicine garden. Afterwards, he used his divine sense to carefully scan the herbs for signs of damage or wilting before nodding in satisfaction. However, he didn't intend to stop here. Completely ignoring his own excessive consumption, he proceeded to spend a great deal of time moving the rest of the 10 medicine gardens into the sealed world bead. Seeing that the ancient medical garden was able to cultivate so many 10,000-year-old spirit medicines, there must be something miraculous hidden within the soil. If nothing else, there was no doubt they had extremely fertile soil. By taking these gardens into the sealed world bead, Yang Kai could not only expand his own garden, but could also increase the survival rate of the plants he would grow in the future by transplanting them into the enhanced soil. When he was finally done, he checked the place one last time before leaving with Zhang Ruoxi. Half a month later, Yang Kai and Zhang Ruoxi shot through the sky on his wooden boat. The lands below them were desolate, with no one in sight as far as the eye could see. During this period of time, the further they traveled, the fewer people they saw. At first, there may be a city here and there, but eventually, it became difficult to spot even a single person. Zhang Ruoxi didn't know where Yang Kai was taking them, and she didn't ask. She silently followed him and refined the 10,000 beast seal whenever she was free. Like this, time passed quickly. One day, a dilapidated city suddenly appeared below them. It looked like it had been haphazardly put together with no regard for aesthetics whatsoever, as the buildings were all in complete disarray. However, despite its appearance, the city was very lively, with countless tough-looking cultivators running amok. Yang Kai observed it for a few moments before landing the boat. Soon, he and Zhang Ruoxi entered the city. The city didn't seem to have a name, but there was no shortage of people coming and going, all of them seemingly in a hurry. The narrow alleyways were crowded on both sides with stalls, and their respective vendors shouted loudly to attract the attention of customers. Yang Kai and Zhang Ruoxi were bombarded by their voices as soon as they stepped inside. This is an Emperor-grade purple lunar jade, which is the best material for nourishing Emperor artifacts. Don't miss it. Come take a look. High-rank Emperor-grade spirit medicine, profound soul-solidifying grass. Even direct consumption will bring you endless benefits. Trade only, not selling. This is the secret art of a third-order Emperor Realm Master, sect leader Duan Santai of Mountain Sect, which existed over 1,000 years ago. If you successfully cultivate it, you will obtain an indestructible metal body. I'm selling this cheap for 10,000 mid-rank source crystals. I risked my life to bring it back from the ancient lands. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. What? Who said that it's fake? Come here and say it louder. I promise I won't beat you. Selling the location of a 12th order six-tailed spirit fox cub. It's a rare beast that has the bloodline of the nine-tailed spirit fox. Those who want to tame it can come speak to me personally, and I will provide paid guidance service. She stared wide-eyed at her surroundings, her head whipping from side to side as she tried to take in everything around her. It was all so novel to her. After a while, she pulled on Yang Kai's clothes and asked in a low whisper, "Sir, what is this place? Why are there so many emperor-grade materials, ancient secret arts, and even the locations of monster beast pups being sold? And what are these ancient lands they speak of?" She could understand if it were just emperor-grade materials, but it was truly strange for secret arts and locations of monster beast cubs to also be sold. However, after listening for a while, she was able to gather that all of the items being sold here were brought from a place called the Ancient Lands, and the locations of the monster beast cubs were also in that place. The city was chaotic but undeniably lively. Moreover, she realized that almost all of the cultivators here were Dao source realms or above. There were even quite a few passing masters who exuded emperor aura. How was a place like this able to attract so many masters? Why was it so attractive to them? Yang Kai responded with a smile. This place sits at the border of the ancient wildlands. The ancient lands they speak of are precisely the ancient wildlands. Ancient wildlands? She repeated in astonishment, evidently never having heard of such a place. I know little about the ancient wildlands. It is a place that is extremely dangerous to explore as it is home to countless monster beasts and even divine spirits, as well as many other lethal threats. Even an emperor would not be able to guarantee his safety inside. Yet, despite the dangers, so many people are venturing inside. That must mean it is a place filled with treasures. Zhang Ruoxi realized immediately. This world is driven by people, while people are driven by profits. That is the sole reason for which these masters have gathered here. Although perilous, the ancient wildlands brim with treasures, and most of the items sold by people here contain a sliver of the ancient wildlands aura, which means they were all brought out from there. Even the Yuanding Great Emperor's mountains and rivers bell originated from the ancient wildlands. The mountains and rivers bell. Zhang Ruoxi's eyes lit up with excitement. She had also undergone training in the Shattered Star Sea and naturally knew of the mountains and rivers bell, but she wasn't aware that it was now in Yang Kai's possession. Taking a deep breath, she asked, "Sir, are you here to enter the ancient lands?" He nodded. I came for the ancient wild lands. According to the information provided by Yin Lushang, Xiao Xiao was indeed teleported to the Eastern Territory with him back then. However, Yin Lushang was injured at the time and was unable to capture Xiao Xiao, so he simply chose to fall back and lie in wait for an opportunity to subdue the strange creature. He never thought Xiao Xiao would enter the ancient wildlands to escape his pursuit. However, at the time, although he didn't know what the ancient wildlands were, Yin Lushang had instinctively sensed the danger from this place and was forced to give up his pursuit. After that, he never saw Xiao Xiao again. If the information was correct, then Xiao Xiao should still be inside the ancient wildlands, under the constraints of the soul contract, and unless he knew a secret technique that could counter the backlash, it was unlikely for Yin Lushang's words to be false. In any case, Yang Kai had to enter the ancient wildlands regardless. He didn't know much about this place though, and if he hadn't come to the Eastern Territory, it was likely that Yang Kai would not have even heard this place's name. Thus, he needed someone to provide him with information about the ancient wildlands. Originally, he had a suitable candidate, Qi Hai from Qi Family Fort. Back when they were in the Shattered Star Sea, this person had urged Yang Kai to visit his Qi family fort as a guest which was situated close to the ancient wildlands. Since Qi Hai was a member of the Qi family, Yang Kai was certain that he knew many top secrets about the ancient wildlands. With his help, Yang Kai reckoned that his chance of survival in the ancient wildlands would increase significantly. Alas, the main reason Qi Hai wanted him to visit was for the Phoenix True Fire. When she was exploring the ancient wildlands, Qi Hai's wife was inflicted with one of the 10 extreme poisons, the heavenly frost earth rain, instantly sealing her fate. The only possible cure was to undergo nirvana with the help of the Phoenix True Flame. It was for this reason that Chi Hai entered the shattered star sea, to find the phoenix true flame, conquer it, and then use it to save his wife. However, he didn't have such good fortune, and now the phoenix true flame was being refined by Lu Yen. Lu Yen had been taken to Spirit Beast Island by Jiufeng, so naturally it would be too shameless for Yang Kai to go to Chi Hai and ask for help now. Chi Hai had been naive to think that he could save his wife as long as he obtained the phoenix true flame, not knowing that refining it was dangerous and time-consuming. As Yang Kai was speaking with Zhang Ruoxi, a man with the head of a buck and the glinting eyes of a rat suddenly approached them and whispered furtively, "Friend, I have an emperor-grade spirit fruit here, the 9 heavens vibrant cloud fruit, that I can sell to you at a cheap price. What do you think?" While speaking, he flipped over his palm, revealing a glowing red fruit that exuded rich qi. It was only for a second, but the strong spirit qi fluctuations caused the surrounding cultivators to simultaneously look over in surprise. Contrary, the handful of stall owners who turned their heads away, all revealing strange expressions. 9 heavens vibrant cloud fruit? The corners of Yang Kai's lips arched, revealing a meaningful smile. Zhang Ruoxi frowned and took a step back. This man was not only dressed sloppily but also smelled horrible, as though he hadn't washed his body in several days. Moreover, as he spoke, she could see a mouthful of rotten, yellow teeth. "Do you want it?" The man lowered his voice, as if he was afraid of being heard. "I risked my life to bring this back from the ancient lands. There was even a 12th order monster beast guarding it. A 12th order monster beast guarding it." Yang Kai looked speechless. As an emperor-grade alchemist, he could tell with a single glance that this 9 heavens vibrant cloud fruit was fake. The real 9 heavens vibrant cloud fruit was indeed an emperor-grade spirit medicine, and it was extremely rare. However, its aura was always restrained and would never exude such strong energy fluctuations. The 9 heavens vibrant cloud fruit would only be guarded by one monster beast, and that was the 9 heavens thunder python. It was indeed a 12th order monster beast, but this man's cultivation was only 1st order Dao source realm. If he were to actually encounter the 9 heavens thunder python, there was absolutely no possibility of him returning alive, for he would be swallowed whole in a matter of seconds. In this nameless city, snakes and vipers crept around among dragons. Yang Kai was unfamiliar with this place, but he was familiar with that principle, so he didn't pay it much heed. It was most likely that this person chose to target Yang Kai and Zhang Ruoxi because they looked young and new to the city, easy to swindle and make a fortune off of. Yang Kai didn't want to pay attention to this kind of person, but a similar figure suddenly surfaced in his mind. Thinking back when he first encountered the bustling world great emperor in Maplewood City, he had also looked this sloppy. When he thought about Duan Hongchen, Yang Kai couldn't help but feel a little worried and wondered how he was doing after his soul fused with Wu Kuang's. "Can you give me an answer, friend? If you don't want it, I'll go find someone else." The man couldn't help but urge when he saw Yang Kai become absent-minded. Yang Kai glanced at him and then released his emperor pressure for a fleeting moment. The man's face immediately paled. He stumbled back and then said with a look of amazement, "So it turns out that Sir is a mighty Emperor Realm Master. As a cultivator in the 2nd Order Dao Source Realm, this man wasn't exactly a weakling, but compared to an emperor, he was like an ant." Yang Kai's act of releasing his emperor pressure made him realize that this unremarkable-looking youth was not to be provoked. Amidst his horror, he gave an ugly smile and said, "Since you don't need it, sir, this lowly one will take his leave." Who was he kidding? He only dared to swindle cultivators in the Dao Source Realm and was in no way courageous enough to provoke an Emperor Realm Master. If he didn't leave now, the young man might make him suffer the consequences of disturbing him. "Wait!" Yang Kai suddenly called out. The man's forehead was dripping with cold sweat. Why yes, sir?" he answered, trembling. "It appears that you have been here for a long time?" "Yes, sir. This lowly one has resided in this city for over 30 years now." 30 years? Yang Kai raised an eyebrow. "In other words, you must be quite familiar with the ancient wildlands?" His amiable attitude seemed to be infectious, for the sloppy man gradually calmed down and hurriedly responded, "Naturally. I have some questions for you then," Yang Kai said lightly. "About the ancient land?" The man was quick-witted, immediately grasping the implications behind Yang Kai's words. Yang Kai nodded. Is there a place here that we can talk? If you don't mind, sir, this lowly one can guide you to a place. However, it is a little expensive. Very well. Lead the way. Yang Kai waved his hand. The man was overjoyed and quickly led the way. Before long, the three of them entered a building that resembled a restaurant. Just like the rest of the city, the outside of the restaurant was haphazardly put together. However, the inside was quite a contrast. Its interior was luxuriously decorated with thick, unknown animal fur on the ground and softly glowing light stones of all sizes on the walls. Even the air was filled with a faint but refreshing fragrance. A single glance at this restaurant was enough to tell Yang Kai that its owner was a capable individual, as it would be impossible to furnish the restaurant so luxuriously otherwise. As soon as the three walked in, a man dressed as a shophand came out to greet them. But when he saw the filthy swindler, he waved his hand rudely. Shoo, shoo, shoo. Is this a place you can enter, Pai-san? Hurry up and get out before you dirty our floor. Despite only being responsible for greeting customers, the shophand was actually a third-order Saint King, and he also looked to be quite young. This caused Yang Kai's eyes to flash subtly. It seemed that there were some hidden dragons and crouching tigers in this restaurant. Although a third-order Saint King was nothing in his eyes, the shophand was clearly overqualified for his job. The swindler, Pai-san, was enraged by the shophand's words though, and blue veins bulged on his forehead as he shouted, "Don't you look down on us! I am here today with this sir to eat. Hurry up and serve us whatever delicious foods and drinks you have. We do not lack source crystals." Watching him bluff and flaunt with Yang Kai's prestige and power was quite hilarious. "Sir." The shophand glanced at Yang Kai and Zhang Ruoxi, his brow slightly furrowed. Zhang Ruoxi looked to be around 20 years of age, so even if her aptitude was good, it should be impossible for her to be an Emperor Realm Master. Yang Kai, on the other hand, appeared somewhat reserved and mysterious, and didn't seem to be weak. This shophand worked all year round and had developed a very keen eye, so with just a glance, he was able to determine that Yang Kai was most likely the strongest of this group, as well as its leader. If that wasn't the case, Pai-san wouldn't go as far as to call him sir. Since they were here to eat, the shophand naturally had no reason to block them. He bowed and said respectfully, "Please come in, honored guests." Likewise, Pai-san fawningly bowed and stepped forward to lead the way, saying, "Come with me, sir. I'll guide you to a private room." Yang Kai nodded and followed him inside. When they passed by the shophand suddenly said, "Sir, Pai-san is a well-known swindler in these parts, especially towards those who are new to the city. Many people have been deceived by him. Be sure to keep your eyes open. Don't let yourself fall for his tricks." Yang Kai glanced at him and responded with a slight smile. "Many thanks for the warning, little brother, but don't worry. If he dares to swindle me, I will ensure that he won't be able to see tomorrow's dawn." The shophand smiled. "You are wise, sir." When Pai-san heard this, he immediately blanched and said hurriedly, "Rest assured, sir, I Pai-san am not a blind swindler. Sir, you are clearly so wise and powerful. How could I dare to play tricks in front of you? Wouldn't I be courting my own death?" However, Yang Kai's face simply remained unchanged, the faint smile causing Pai-san to feel more and more nervous. Soon, with Pai-san guiding them, the three entered a private room. He seemed to be aware of his own unpleasant odor, so after Yang Kai and Zhang Ruoxi took their seats, he deliberately took a seat far away from them. "Sir, since this is your first time here, you must try the restaurant's wild wine," he said with great enthusiasm. Yang Kai snorted lightly. "You may order whatever you wish. Consider it a reward for answering my questions." Pai-san was overjoyed and hurriedly said, "Many thanks, sir." He was almost drooling as he spoke and immediately slapped the table to call for a waitress in an imposing manner. Then he proceeded to rattle off more than a dozen dishes with ease and familiarity. Yang Kai was slightly surprised by the names he heard, as he could tell that these dishes were all made using monster beast parts and spirit herbs. Not only that, but they were 11th order monster beasts and Dao source grade spirit herbs. Dishes such as these, even if they tasted horrible, were greatly beneficial for any cultivator, and with long-term consumption, they would definitely experience an increase in strength. The waitress was quite young, and after Paisan finished ordering, she turned toward Yang Kai and said awkwardly, "Honored guest, your order comes to a total of 530,000 low-rank source crystals. Please pardon this humble one for asking you to settle the account first." She seemed to know that Yang Kai was the one with the source crystals, not Paisan. Upon hearing this, Paisan angrily slammed the table. "What? Are you afraid we'll run after eating? Both you and that shop hand outside. So young yet already so disrespectful. Is this how you were taught to treat customers?" The waitress's beautiful face turned pale with fright and quickly waved her hands while denying. "No, no." Just as Paisan opened his mouth again to teach her a lesson, Yang Kai gave a sudden cold snort, which immediately made him shrink back and shut up. Yang Kai took out a cloth bag from his space ring and handed it to the waitress. "Here." The waitress took it and confirmed the amount inside with her divine sense before smiling and nodding. "Please give us a few moments, honored guests. Your food and drinks will arrive shortly." Saying so, she turned around and left. This restaurant proved to be quite efficient because, before long, their order was ready. The table was filled to the brim with delicious food and wine that saturated the air with their mouth-watering aromas. There was no lack of variety, and each and every dish looked absolutely delectable. Paisan picked up the wine jar, respectfully walked to Yang Kai and Zhang Ruoxi's side, and graciously filled their cups while introducing, "The wild wine here is a treasure that must be tasted, sir." However, Zhang Ruoxi frowned as she snapped, "Hurry up and finish eating, so you can answer sir's questions." She treated him with undisguised displeasure. "Young lady, please do not regard this with offense, but it is best to drink this wine if you plan to enter the ancient land." "Why?" She looked at him suspiciously. He responded with a slight smile, "Because every ingredient used to make this wine is from the ancient land, which imbues it with the aura of the ancient land itself. Drinking this wine will allow you to adapt slightly to the wild force, which will help you greatly in your venture." Wild force? Zhang Ruoxi still didn't quite understand. Meanwhile, Yang Kai revealed a thoughtful look and nodded. "Ruoxi, drink some and feel the mysteries of the wild force." Since Yang Kai had spoken, she naturally didn't continue to refuse. "Yes." She took a slight sip and savored it. Then her brow furrowed in surprise. Quickly, as though resisting something, she began to circulate her source chi. Paisan watched on with a knowing look. The energy contained within the wild wine is strong and vigorous. Even an Emperor Realm Master will struggle with drinking more than one jar. "Please drink slowly and carefully, young lady." While he was speaking, Yang Kai also took a sip. Indeed, there was a strange power hidden in the wine that after entering his abdomen, melted into his physique, meridians, and dantian, affecting the circulation of his Emperor Qi. However, this power was not unfamiliar to Yang Kai. He raised an eyebrow at this realization and thought to himself, "Isn't this so-called wild force the same as the aura released by my Mountains and Rivers Bell?" When Yang Kai activated the Mountains and Rivers Bell, its power surged forth and suppressed the wild force contained within the wild wine, which was indeed very similar but countless times weaker. After figuring out the secret behind the wild wine, Yang Kai urged his Emperor Qi to dissolve its effects. Paisan, who had returned to his end of the table, was already wolfing down the food like a starved ghost. He seemed to be aware that neither Yang Kai nor Zhang Ruoxi were interested in the food, so he didn't say anything and simply focused on stuffing his face. Normally, he would never be able to afford to eat at a restaurant like this, but since Yang Kai said that this table of food and wine was a reward, he would not be polite. After some time, he finally sat back, rubbed his protruding stomach in satisfaction, and let out a sound burp. Meanwhile, Yang Kai and Zhang Ruoxi had only consumed half of the jar of wild wine. Yang Kai only drank one glass while Zhang Ruoxi drank the rest. At this point, her cheeks were already flushed, and her expression slightly dazed. She was in the third-order Dao source realm, so the fact that a little under half a jar of wild wine could intoxicate her showed that the wine was indeed potent. However, part of the reason was probably also because she'd never drank wine before. "Since you've had your fill, I will ask you my questions," Xianxia said indifferently, turning his gaze to the man lying relaxed in the chair. Pai-san shuddered and immediately sat up with a solemn expression on his face. "Please do, sir. This lowly one will tell you everything he knows." And Xianxia was quite satisfied with his attitude and continued, "I am here for the first time and know nothing about the ancient lands, so tell me everything you know." Pai-san fell silent as he organized his thoughts. After a while, he opened his mouth and said passionately, "Sir, since you've come to this city by word of mouth, this lowly one believes you are not absolutely ignorant about the ancient lands. It is a region that has never been occupied by man, for a legion of powerful monster beasts reside within it. There are countless natural dangers as well, so much that not even an Emperor Realm Master would be able to guarantee his own safety inside. In other words, cultivators who enter the ancient lands must be prepared to leave their lives there, for they may fall at any time. But of course, the greater the danger, the greater the benefits. All sorts of rare herbs grow inside, and there is no lack of other precious treasures. Thus, despite the dangers, countless masters from across the entire star boundary are eager to explore this region. Countless people have met with fortune in the ancient land, including the famous Yuanding Great Emperor. It is said that his signature mountain and river's bell was found within the ancient lands, and it was that very bell that allowed him to rise to seize the title of Great Emperor. Although everything Pai-san had said so far was common knowledge that Xianxia was already aware of, he didn't interrupt him and continued to listen attentively. The ancient lands is not a place that can be entered at will. The minimum cultivation level for those who wish to enter is the Tao Source Realm. Any lower, and they would lack the qualifications to even set foot inside. There is only one path leading to the ancient lands, a colossal canyon that is shrouded in a thick and strange fog year-round. The fog is so thick that one would not be able to see their own 5 fingers stretched out before them, and it also interferes with one's divine sense. This alone doesn't pose much of a threat, but there's more, a deadly, invisible astral wind that blows from time to time. Any cultivator in the Tao Source Realm who encounters this wind, would be left on the verge of death. Yet there is something even more dangerous than the gale, and that is the falling thunder. It is as strong as an attack from an Emperor Realm Master and thus very difficult to resist. Several years ago, there was an Emperor Realm Master who ventured into the ancient lands for the first time. He was confident in his strength and didn't bother to gather information about the ancient lands, and as a result, he never returned. It was only 3 years ago that someone found his body just 50 kilometers from the entrance. Masters from countless influential sects have investigated the ancient lands and determined that the canyon entrance is filled with natural spirit arrays. The mysterious fog, the astral wind, and the falling thunder are all produced by those very natural spirit arrays. They appear sporadically, ungoverned by any discernible law. Therefore, in order to enter the ancient lands, luck is more important than strength. If you are lucky, you will be able to pass safely, but if you're not, only death awaits you. But that's not all. What other dangers could there be, you may ask? Of course, it's the danger of our own kind. There are people who lurk in the canyon and target lone cultivators, killing and then looting them. Such people are very familiar with the environment because it is essentially their home. Encountering them would prove more troublesome than any of the canyon's natural dangers. Therefore, you must never let your guard down while you're there, sir. Needless to say, beyond the canyon, the ancient lands themselves are also filled with danger at every turn. The entire region is covered in its natural aura, the wild force. No one knows exactly what this power is, but according to the people who returned alive, it can suppress your power by as little as less than 0.25% to an entire half. Several masters have fallen because of this. That is also the reason I insisted that you and the young lady drink the wild wine, sir. Although the wild force contained within it is much weaker than in the ancient lands, it will greatly familiarize you with the strange power. The most prevalent dangers are the ones you will face in the canyon, as well as the wild force. As for what dangers you may encounter once you enter the ancient land, need I say more? Monster beasts reign there amidst countless other natural restrictions and spirit arrays. It is even said that a number of divine spirits reside within the ancient land. I believe that there is truly no place in the star boundary more dangerous than the ancient lands. As he listened to Pai San's explanation, Yang Kai's expression became slightly tense. According to what he said, the entrance alone was already extremely dangerous, let alone the land inside. He wasn't worried about whether he would encounter any danger after entering, but rather about Xianxia, whose cultivation didn't even reach the peak of the Origin King realm when they separated. Could he have survived in such a perilous place? As for the wild force, he didn't pay it much heed as he was already very familiar with it. After all, the primitive aura from his mountains and rivers bell was far stronger than the so-called wild force. Moreover, as the owner of the bell, Yang Kai believed that the wild force would not affect him much. Pai San, on the other hand, interpreted Yang Kai's solemn expression as wariness. This was the normal reaction. People would hear rumors and travel to this desolate city without knowing what dangers lay within the ancient lands and leave in dismay once they learned. Pai San had lived in this city for over 30 years and was no stranger to the occurrence. He pondered for a while and then said, "Sir, although the ancient lands are filled with opportunities, if you wish to enter merely for the sake of treasures, you should leave. It would be better to take the young lady elsewhere." The table of food had cost Yang Kai 530,000 low-rank source crystals. Yet he didn't even bat an eye. Thus Pai San was very grateful and couldn't help warning him earnestly. "I have other reasons for entering the ancient lands, ones that cannot be ignored," Yang Kai responded. He had to find Xiao. "I see." Seeing Yang Kai's determination, it would be inappropriate for Pai San to continue dissuading him. Realizing this, he pondered some more, grit his teeth, and retrieved a jade slip from his own space ring. "In that case, sir, I will give you this." "What is this?" Pai San grinned meaningfully. "A map of the ancient lands. There is such a thing?" Yang Kai suddenly became interested and quickly accepted the jade slip. He poured his divine sense into it and saw that it was indeed something like a map, and it was very easy to read. "This is just a map of the outskirts. No one knows how vast the ancient lands truly are, but after so many years of exploration, some information of the outskirts has naturally been revealed. Some have combined all of the information to produce this map which marks the known dangerous regions. You should try to avoid as many of these places as possible, sir." "What do the black dots on this map represent?" Yang Kai asked after studying the map for a while. "Natural arrays. The darker the color, the more formidable the restriction or array." "What about the red dots? Are they for monster beasts?" Yang Kai asked again. "Indeed. The red dots signify monster beasts. Similarly, the brighter the color, the stronger the monster beast." Yang Kai nodded slightly. He looked at the map again and saw areas with densely packed red dots, clearly symbolizing areas where monster beasts gathered. Those were the areas that even he would have to avoid. Pai San laughed. If it were anyone else, this lowly one would have sold them a simplified jade slip. But this one is the newest and most detailed, so you can use it with confidence, sir. He'd finished an entire table of food and knew how to return a favor with a favor, making Yang Kai feel that he had not spent 530,000 low-rank source crystals in vain. "Many thanks, then." Yang Kai nodded. "You are too polite, sir." Pai San can't help being flattered, for he had never been treated so courteously by an Emperor Realm Master before. Despite his strength, normally, people would show a look of disgust at the sight of his face and try to stay far, far away. Yet, Yang Kai brought him to the best restaurant in this desolate city and fed him an entire table of good food and wine. "Sir, there is one more thing I would like to tell you." "Go ahead." "If you must enter the ancient lands, it would be best for sir to find Old Ban." "Old Ban?" Yang Kai raised his brows. Pai San nodded. "No one knows his true name, so everyone just calls him Old Ban. He's lived in this place for far longer than me and is very familiar with the canyon. Sir, if you can get him to be your guide, your safe entry into the ancient lands will be guaranteed." "A guide?" Yang Kai asked in surprise. To think that there was someone who could act as a guide for the ancient lands. It was quite relieving, actually, considering how dangerous this place was. You mustn't look down on old Ban, sir. Although he is only a first-order Dao source realm and is quite elderly, there is no better guide in this desolate city. This lowly one has lived here for 30 years and heard others speak of him countless times. The most impressive thing is that he's actually entered and returned from the ancient lands over 100 times already. Not even mentioning 100 times, just being able to travel back and forth safely 3 to 5 times is already a big accomplishment. He is truly the most brilliant and experienced guide in the city. Yang Kai was visibly moved. Over 100 times? How is that possible? Paisen responded with a bitter smile. I would also like to know, but it is a secret that old Ban keeps to himself. However, this lowly one reckons that he must have established a safe route in and out. He is absolutely worth paying a visit to, then. Is he currently in this city? It was better to be safe than sorry. Although Yang Kai was a master who didn't fear anything, the best option was undoubtedly to have a veteran guide him into the ancient lands. And I saw him just yesterday. However, one must pay at least 300,000 source crystals for his service. That's not a problem, Yang Kai said with a slight smile. 300,000 source crystals was a drop in the bucket for him. The table of food Paisan had just eaten was worth over 500,000 source crystals already. Shall I take you to him, sir? Paisan offered politely. Yang Kai nodded and thought for a moment before calling the waitress over once again. He asked her to prepare 10 more bottles of wild wine for them to take away. He didn't need to drink it, but it wouldn't hurt Zhang Ruoxi to drink more. Before long, the waitress returned with 10 jars of wild wine. However, to Yang Kai's surprise, before he could take out his space ring to pay, the waitress smiled and told him, Sir, the manager instructed me to give you these 10 bottles of wine free of charge. Please kindly accept them. The manager? He frowned. Paisan, however, looked amazed. Why did your manager decide to gift me this wine? Yang Kai asked, looking at the waitress. This servant does not know, she replied, shaking her head. Yang Kai frowned again and waved his hand, withdrawing some source crystals from his space ring and leaving them on the table. Next, he threw the bottles of wine into his space ring and called out to Zhang Ruoxi and Paisan, Let's go! The waitress was somewhat stunned. It seemed that she had never seen someone refuse a free luxury, and before she could react, they were gone. Outside of the restaurant, Paisan opened and closed his mouth several times before losing to his curiosity. Sir, are you acquainted with the manager? No, that was my first visit. Yang Kai responded faintly. That's strange. Why did they want to give you so much wild wine then? Yang Kai chuckled. The shopkeeper gave them to me of their own accord. I neither stole nor swindled them, so there is no need to pay it any heed. He paused and then asked, What is the background of this restaurant? This lowly one is unsure. It was established a long time ago, and the manager has always been mysterious and never appeared in public. So no one in this city knows the background of the restaurant. However, we believe that the shopkeeper has a great force supporting him from behind. They couldn't have gained a foothold in this place and set up such a luxurious restaurant otherwise. For even a local scoundrel like Paisan to not know the restaurant's background, it seemed that the restaurant really was supported from the shadows by a great force. Yang Kai had refused the free wild wine precisely because he didn't want to have any ties with the restaurant and regret it later on. On the second floor of the restaurant, a pair of bright eyes followed Yang Kai's departing figure. After a moment, this figure sighed and spoke. Send a message to young master and inform him that the person he mentioned has arrived. It seems that he is about to enter the ancient lands, so tell everyone to be prepared. Yes. A reply came from the darkness. Oh. The city was quite vast, so Yang Kai and Zhou Ruoxi had to follow Paisan for some time before reaching their destination in the western district. Paisan pointed to a certain stone house in the distance and said, That is Old Ban's residence. It would be best for Sir to go alone, as Old Ban does not have a good impression of this lowly one. This lowly one is afraid he will be prejudiced against Sir if he sees me, so I will not be accompanying you further. Yang Kai nodded. You've worked hard. You flatter me, sir. I wish you a smooth journey and a safe return. Farewell. As soon as his words fell, he was gone. Let's go, Xianxia said before walking directly towards the house Pai-san had pointed to. The houses here were all haphazard in appearance, but they were very sturdy and conformed with the overall look of the city. Before long, they arrived in front of the house. It resembled a farmyard, fenced in by a wall made of layered thick stones, with a gate at the center. Presently, the door was open, and two black-clad cultivators were standing on either side of it. They looked at Xianxia and Zhou Roshi, their expressions cold. Xianxia made a sound of surprise. Did he come to the wrong place? Not only were there cultivators guarding the entrance, but they were also both in the Dao source realm. Judging from their auras, they were quite powerful. However, according to Pai-san, Old Ban was just an ordinary man without a noble status. Otherwise, he wouldn't be acting as a guide for a living. What is your purpose here? One of the black-clad cultivators questioned. Excuse me, is this Old Ban's residence? Zhang Ruoshi asked. Don't know, he replied coldly. Zhang Ruoshi frowned. She was annoyed by the man's flippant don't know, as her question was just a simple yes or no question. What do you mean you don't know? What are you doing here? Then, the black-clad cultivator glanced at her. Then he gave a slight sneer and didn't respond, greatly angering her. Xianxia glanced inside the house and then smiled, saying, This should be the right place, but it seems that there is someone inside. He turned his gaze to the black-clad cultivator. Is it your master? You talk too much. You should hurry and scram out of here. The cultivator on the right suddenly spoke up. Xianxia grinned. Why? The cultivator on the left snorted coldly. Are you looking for trouble? Didn't you hear me tell you to scram? Isn't this the residence of Old Ban? What right do you have to tell us to leave? Xianxia wondered. Our young lady is inside. Scram if you don't want to die. Xianxia was taken aback slightly by this situation. He didn't know which great force these two cultivators and their young lady belonged to, but it should be common knowledge that this desolate city was crawling with hidden experts. There was no telling when you might offend the wrong person. However, seeing that these guards were completely fearless, the force behind them must be quite formidable. Unfortunately for them, Xianxia had killed a cultivator at the Third Order Emperor realm and even fought against a great emperor before. There were very few people in the world who could intimidate him. He wasn't angered by these fierce-looking guards and instead said in a harmonious voice, I've come to see Old Ban. Please make way. His eyes flashed as he spoke. The two black-clad cultivators, who had looked so domineering and arrogant, suddenly groaned. As if they had been struck by lightning, they staggered back several steps, their faces pale. A feeling of extreme pressure descended upon them, and they felt as if they had been pressed down by a mountain, making it difficult to breathe or even lift a finger. Cold sweat dripped from their foreheads, and they could only watch as Xianxia and Zhang Ruoshi walked past them. Zhang Ruoshi was still angered by their previous actions and even raised her fist to hit them. Before they could step foot inside the house, however, there was a sudden yell, and then the sound of something breaking. After a soft thump, a low groan sounded. At the same time, the shrill cry of a little girl entered Xianxia's ears. His expression sank and he immediately rushed into the house. He looked around and found an old man with gray hair kneeling down on the floor. His aura was First Order Dao Source Realm. However, due to his old age, his vitality was weak, rendering his cultivation somewhat weaker than it should have been. This person was most likely Old Ban. His back was facing away from the entrance as he clutched a little girl in his arms. On his shoulder was a horrifying bloodstain, which seemed to have been caused by a whip, and there were even signs of flesh being cleaved from his form. The little girl in his arms was crying loudly, seemingly extremely frightened. Aside from the old man and the little girl, there were two other people inside the house. One was a man who looked to be in his 50s, wearing a cold and indifferent expression on his face. The other one was a young woman in a flaming red dress. She didn't look much older than Zhang Ruoshi. She bore exquisite features and a voluptuous figure, which was further accentuated by her tight-fitting dress. Her appearance was like the embodiment of a blooming red rose. However, at the moment, she was holding a whip in her hand and raising it high, ready to lash out. With a fierce expression on her face, she snarled, "Don't refuse a face-saving offer, you old thing. You should feel honored that this young lady is asking you to guide her. If you dare to refuse, I'll kill you." The bloody wound on the old man's shoulder was caused by the red-clothed girl's whip, and it was also because of her that the little girl was crying. "I'll ask you once more. Will you guide me or not?" the young woman asked as she looked down viciously at the old man. The old man lowered his head and grit his teeth. "Young lady, could you spare me a few days? Xiao Linger is ill and must be taken care of. If I leave now, she'll—" "What does this dirty brat being sick have to do with this young lady? This young lady's time is very precious. Not even a moment of delay is acceptable, let alone a few days. I'll ask you one last time, will you guide me or not?" The red-robed girl coldly snorted, not the slightest bit moved. Old man pleaded bitterly. 2 days, this old man only needs 2 days of time. After 2 days, this old man will guide you safely into the ancient land. Young lady, since you've chosen to refuse a toast, you must drink a loss. You're courting death, you old thing, the red-clothed girl snarled. She was evidently incensed as she lashed out with her whip. The young woman's cultivation was not low. Like Zhang Ruoxi, she was in the third-order Dao source realm. Yang Kai couldn't tell what type of secret technique she was using, but as her rage increased, her attack also seemed to become more vicious, calling forth the peals of wind and lightning. If this whip were to land, Old Man, with his first-order Dao source realm cultivation, would have no way of resisting and be left half dead. However, her whip was suddenly caught mid-air. The other party didn't seem to be exerting much force, yet the red-clothed young woman found herself unable to budge one bit. She was furious, and turning her head, she immediately caught sight of another young woman like herself who had appeared behind her without her realizing. Zhang Ruoxi was the one who grabbed the whip. Although she was ruthless and savage when fighting, her personality was still innocent and kind. She was naturally enraged by the atrocity occurring before them and intervened without needing Yang Kai to give the command. "What's wrong with you?" she exclaimed. The red-clothed girl frowned and snapped, "Who are you, little girl? How dare you meddle in this young lady's affairs?" Zhang Ruoxi snorted coldly. "Who are you calling a little girl? Aren't you one too? No matter what, it's wrong to beat people." This elder said to give him 2 days. "Can't you see that the little girl is sick? You dare talk back to me?" The red-clothed girl was like an active volcano, always erupting in anger. "I'll kill you!" As she spoke, she tried to pull back her weapon, but no matter how hard she tried, she was unable to free it from Zhang Ruoxi's grasp. Zhang Ruoxi's small, fair hand looked like it barely contained any strength, but her grip was like a vice. The red-clothed girl's face changed slightly as she realized Zhang Ruoxi wasn't as easy to deal with as she thought. Although they were both third-order Dao source realms, the red-clothed girl was clearly a spoiled, sheltered girl with no real combat experience. She tried several times to get her whip back but always failed, causing her little face to turn red with embarrassment. "Why haven't you moved yet, old foo?" She stomped her feet angrily and grit her teeth. "This young lady has been bullied. If you don't make a move now, I'll go back and tell Lord Father to break your legs." And what are the 2 wastes outside doing? Their job was to stop people from intruding. When we get back, this young lady is going to take their souls and turn them into slaves. However, even after she finished yelling, old Fu didn't move. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but he couldn't. He'd noticed when Yang Kai and Zhang Ruoxi broke in, but he still didn't pay them much heed. After all, they both looked young, so even if they had some skill, they wouldn't be too much to handle. When Zhang Ruoxi moved to grab his young lady's whip, old Fu had wanted to stop her. But when his eyes suddenly met Yang Kai's, his heart suddenly jumped, and then his mind fell into a momentary trance. As a result, he was unable to stop Zhang Ruoxi. Afterwards, he and Yang Kai just stared at each other silently. In that moment, old Fu was given a great shock. because he discovered that the young man in front of him was actually a genuine Emperor Realm Master. To think he is already an emperor at such a young age. Does he belong to one of the great forces, or did he encounter a great opportunity in the Shattered Star Sea? Recently, many rising stars appeared in the star boundary, and it was no secret that there were many new emperors. Old Fu believed that Yang Kai was one of those rising stars. However, even though he was shocked, he still didn't pay much attention to Yang Kai. Few people would dare to provoke his young lady, and compared to those few people, Yang Kai was nothing special. Thus, under the repeated urging of his young lady, he finally took action. A divine light suddenly shot out from his two eyes, and like a sharp sword, it pierced into Yang Kai's mind. A soul technique. Yang Kai raised his eyebrows in surprise. Since they were both first-order emperors, Old Fu couldn't unleash a soul attack as his first strike if he didn't have absolute confidence in the power of his own soul. Doing so was risky because if his opponent's soul was stronger than his, he would be dealt a strong backlash. Judging from the strength of Old Fu's attack, his soul was indeed very strong, superior to most cultivators in the first-order emperor realm, and almost on par with a second-order emperor. This was most likely the source of his confidence. As soon as he unleashed the attack, Old Fu turned his attention from Yang Kai to Zhang Ruoxi. He seemed to believe that even if the attack failed to hurt Yang Kai, it would at least force him back for a while. When the red-clothed girl saw Old Fu moving to take action, she began to shout excitedly, "Good! Good! Good! Old Fu, grab this cheap slut for me. This young lady is going to ruin her face to show her the consequences of messing with me." Zhang Ruoxi felt a strong pressure bearing down on her as Old Fu drew near, and it even became slightly difficult to breathe. When she heard the red-clothed girl's vicious words, her face turned pale. She was only in her early 20s and hadn't seen much of the world. If her face really were to get ruined, she would have a hard time going out in public. Although she was indifferent about her looks, who would want to experience such torture? The visible panic on Zhang Ruoxi's face gave the red-clothed girl a great sense of pride and satisfaction. "Oh, now you're afraid? It's too late. This young lady will not only ruin your face, but will also strip you naked and throw you out, so those dirty men outside can enjoy you," she said, laughing happily. Zhang Ruoxi grew dizzy with fear, and her pale face became even more bloodless. In her mind, she couldn't help but imagine herself naked and surrounded by countless men, and she almost started to cry. If that kind of thing really were to happen, she was afraid she would be too ashamed to keep on living. Suddenly, a cold snort sounded from the side. "Humph! Which family's little girl is this? To be so vicious at such a young age?" It was Yang Kai. Even as a man, he couldn't tolerate the red-clothed girl's words. Ruining Zhang Ruoxi's face and tearing off her clothes? It was too cruel. Old Fu, who had just grabbed towards Zhang Ruoxi, suddenly began to shake from head to toe, as though he had seen a ghost in broad daylight. The powerful aura around his body suddenly weakened, and he staggered back several steps in shock. Yang Kai had countered his soul technique. Fortunately, Old Fu was simply focused on protecting his mistress and didn't use his full strength. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. This young man's spiritual energy is actually stronger than mine. How could this be? He knew very well how strong his spiritual energy was because in his early years, he came across the waterfall divine grass, which allowed his spiritual energy to soar after it was refined. An ordinary first-order Emperor Realm cultivator couldn't be stronger than him in this regard, yet this young man was not only able to protect himself, but also to deal a small injury to him in return. Was this young man actually a second-order emperor? He'd heard that there were many hidden dragons and crouching tigers in this desolate city, and apparently, that saying was true. Old Fu turned towards Yang Kai with a gloomy expression. He had thought that he would be able to run rampant in this city and protect himself with his status and strength, but now it seemed that he was a little naive. How many monsters like this young man were hidden in this city? Without Old Fu's aura oppressing her, Zhang Ruoxi's spirit was immediately restored. Meanwhile, the red-clothed girl was still chattering away about how she was going to torture her. Zhang Ruoxi angrily let go of the whip and leapt forward, striking the red-clothed girl in the chest with a palm. Ah! The red-clothed girl was still waiting for old Fu to finish off her opponent, and was caught off guard by Zhang Ruoxi's palm. She screamed and flew backwards in the air. Old Fu was startled and immediately stretched out a hand, his Emperor Qi sweeping forth to catch his young lady, as he didn't even dare to touch her with his hands. However, what bewildered Yang Kai was the fact that the red-clothed girl did nothing to counter Zhang Ruoxi's palm. After she fell down, she simply stood back up, shook her head a few times and then stared at Zhang Ruoxi blankly. It wasn't until several moments later that she reacted. "You hit me?" She seemed to be in disbelief. Then, all of a sudden, she became hysterical, as if Zhang Ruoxi had done something absolutely unforgivable. Her beautiful eyes turned red, and her face twisted into a ferocious expression. "How dare you hit me, you cheap slut!" As soon as her words fell, the peals of wind and thunder sounded again and her whip sliced through the air, flying viciously toward Zhang Ruoxi. Zhang Ruoxi was also stunned. She'd attacked the young woman in anger, but didn't expect her to just stand there and get hit. Moreover, when her palm came into contact with this red-clothed girl, it felt as though she had struck not a human body made of flesh, but a mass of cotton. It was her first time encountering something like this, so she couldn't help but become slightly distracted. She returned to her senses just before the whip landed. Gritting her teeth, Zhang Ruoxi flickered and reappeared again before the red-clothed girl. Her fair hands moved quickly, turning into countless afterimages as she pushed her source chi and sent a rush of fists towards the red-clothed girl. The red-clothed girl was clearly a pampered young lady from a great force. Although she was strong, she lacked actual combat experience. The state of rage she was in made her lose any semblance of control, and she could now only lash her whip around haphazardly, completely unable to draw out her full strength. Zhang Ruoxi had not participated in many battles, but in the 20-odd days she spent in Purple Mountain City, she'd fought countless life or death battles in the arena. As such, she had far more experience than the red-clothed girl. Thus, their fight quickly became one-sided, with the red-clothed girl being completely suppressed. Pung pung pung. Zhang Ruoxi landed blow after blow on the red-clothed girl, each one causing her to stagger and fall back, while none of her blows landed on Zhang Ruoxi. However, even after receiving several dozen blows in rapid succession, the red-clothed girl remained unhurt, and her fierce aura was not diminished at all. However, the fight did make her extremely angry, and she was constantly yelling curses. Her pretty face twisted into an expression that made her look like a man-eating monster. A defensive emperor artifact. Yang Kai's eyes narrowed slightly, finally understanding why the red-clothed young woman was not injured. With every blow that Zhang Ruoxi landed, the red-clothed girl's body would flash with a faint gleam of light, which absorbed the impact of the blows. Such a powerful defensive ability could only be due to a defensive emperor artifact. In other words, she was definitely wearing a powerful artifact armor. Emperor treasures were rare, and defensive ones were even rarer. The fact that this girl possessed one proved that her status was by no means low. Although the red-clothed girl was not injured, she was battered and exhausted by Zhang Ruoxi. She was forced back repeatedly as she continued to scream fiercely, "I'll kill you! Kill you! Kill you!" After a while, she realized that she was not Zhang Ruoxi's opponent at all though and shouted at Old Fu. "Why haven't you killed her yet, Old Fu?" However, Old Fu was also suffering. Yang Kai had just countered his soul technique, and although he wasn't seriously injured by the backlash, he could tell that Yang Kai was keeping an eye on him. Thus, he didn't dare to act rashly. When he heard his young lady's call, he could only gnash his teeth and rush towards Zhang Ruoxi. However, as soon as he moved, Yang Kai appeared in front of him like a ghost and unleashed a palm in his direction calmly as he stated, "You shouldn't interfere in the fight between the two young girls, Old Fu. An elder shouldn't bully his juniors." Sigh. Old Fu drew a sharp breath of cold air and forced himself to draw back. Yang Kai's palm seemed absolutely ordinary and undistinguished, yet it brought him a sense of deadly danger. He didn't doubt that if it had landed, he would have been left half dead. Who is this little brat? How is he so powerful? Even though he wanted to save his mistress, His eyes were filled with anxiety and hesitation. There was nothing he could do now. Meanwhile, Old Ban had long retreated to a corner of the house. He was still holding Xiao Linger tightly in his arms, protecting her as he watched the ongoing fight with a look of horror on his face. Although he had lived in this desolated city all his life, he was only a first-order Dao Source Realm cultivator in the end. Now that he had Xiao Linger to take care of, he was naturally afraid of provoking other people's anger. But now, 2 young women and 2 Emperor's Realm Masters were facing off inside his house, causing him to feel dazed. Both groups of people seemed to come from great backgrounds, neither of which he could afford to provoke. Although he was grateful to Yang Kai and Zhang Ruoxi for their help, he dared not say a single word and could only pray secretly for there to be no deaths. Pung pung pung. The red-clothed girl was forced to a corner by Zhang Ruoxi's attacks. She was completely helpless, and all of the attacks she unleashed were easily avoided by Zhang Ruoxi. It was as though she had become a sandbag, unable to do anything except passively accept the blows. Fortunately, her defensive Emperor artifact was extremely strong, and Zhang Ruoxi was attacking without murderous intent. Therefore, although the red-clothed girl looked battered and exhausted, her life was not at any risk. However, being beaten like this really made her lose all face, and her aggrieved eyes were red, either from anger or the urge to cry. Old Fu was frightened by Yang Kai and couldn't help his young lady directly, so he gritted his teeth and shouted, "Junior, tell your little companion to stop and apologize to my young lady. Otherwise the 2 of you will die." "You dare to threaten me?" Yang Kai coldly snorted, his chilly gaze sweeping over to Old Fu, causing the latter's heart to tremble and his throat to bob nervously. Old Fu calmed himself down and continued, "I'm warning you now, my young lady's identity is—" Without waiting for him to finish, Yang Kai turned his head and shouted to Zhang Ruoxi, "She's wearing a defensive Emperor artifact, Ruoxi. It's pointless for you to keep attacking her like this." Due to some unknown power, Old Fu felt a buzz in his head and became unable to finish his words. A defensive Emperor artifact? Zhang Ruoxi was enlightened by his words. No wonder it felt like she had been hitting cotton the whole time. It turned out that, like her, this red-clothed girl was being protected by an Emperor artifact. What should I do then? Zhang Ruoxi stepped back and stopped attacking. Although she was still angry, after being attacked so furiously for so long, the red-clothed girl also looked pale. Anyone who had been beaten so furiously without being able to hit back would be frightened, even if she was being protected by an Emperor artifact. Her eyes, as she looked at Zhang Ruoxi, were now full of fear. No one had dared to defy her from when she was a child until now, and even if she had asked for the stars in the sky, many people would clamor to pick them for her. She had never been hit by someone before. Yet, today, in this dilapidated stone house, in this desolate city, she was hit by Zhang Ruoxi over 100 times. Upon hearing Zhang Ruoxi's question, Yang Kai touched his chin and said leisurely, "That Emperor artifact may be powerful, but it cannot protect every part of her body. Didn't she say that she wanted to ruin your face?" Zhang Ruoxi immediately nodded and said, "Ruoxi understands." As she spoke, she coldly looked at the red-clothed girl, her beautiful eyes sweeping up and down her face. What are you planning?" As soon as she saw the malicious intention in Zhang Ruoxi's gaze, the red-clothed girl's eyes filled with panic. She cried out and tried to step back, but how could she retreat when there was only a wall behind her? The whip in her hands had long fallen to the ground. Old Fu's face also turned pale with fright. According to Yang Kai's words, the other young woman was going to hit his young lady's face. With his young lady's temper, he was afraid the whole Eastern Territory would be shaken by her rage, so he shouted loudly, "Listen carefully, little brat. My young lady is from—" "I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can't hear you." Yang Kai shook his head back and forth like a rattle, and once again, Old Fu's words came to an abrupt end as he was unable to finish. Old Fu immediately realized that Yang Kai knew that their background was extraordinary, and thus didn't want to know it, lest he regret his actions after knowing. How despicable and shameless! Usually, Even the strongest of opponents would retreat in fear after learning the identity and background of his young lady. However, because this brat was using some strange power to seal his mouth, he was unable to reveal their status. Yang Kai then coldly snorted, "Ruoxi, if anyone here other than me dares to say another word, slap that girl's face." "Okay." Naturally, Zhang Ruoxi obeyed. Since it was Yang Kai's order, even if the person standing before her was the Heaven's Jade Emperor, she would still comply. "You dare!" the red-clothed girl shouted. "Pa!" With a crisp sound, the girl's head whipped to the side, and a red palm imprint appeared on her left cheek. Dumbfounded, she covered her cheek with her hand and stared dazedly at Zhang Ruoxi. The burning pain on her cheek both terrified and amazed her. It wasn't until several moments later that she reacted. "You actually dared to..." "Pa!" This time, a red palm imprint appeared on her right cheek. "Wah?" the red-clothed girl cried out as her tears streamed down like a trail of glistening pearls, looking completely heartbroken. Seeing this, Zhang Ruoxi frowned and threatened, "Shut up! If you keep crying, I'll slap you again." These words seemed to carry infinite intimidation, because the red-clothed girl abruptly stopped crying. However, her shoulders were still shaking with sobs. She was really scared of being beaten. Zhang Ruoxi coldly snorted, "I only slapped you twice, yet you're already crying like it's the end of the world. Did you stop to think about your own actions when you were hitting the old man? He only asked you to wait 2 days. It's not like he refused to guide you. Do you even know how painful your whip is?" "Impudent little girl!" Old Fu couldn't help but shout. How could he possibly tolerate seeing his young lady be slapped and severely berated by this little girl? In response, Zhang Ruoxi raised her hand and slapped the red-clothed girl again. "Sir said to hit you if anyone dares to speak. If you want to blame someone, blame the person who just spoke." The red-clothed girl turned her head, her beautiful eyes erupting in rage as she glared murderously at Old Fu. "Irk?" Old Fu shrunk back under her glare, knowing that his young lady would remember this and resent him for it. Yang Kai laughed and looked at him. "Do you have something else to say, old man? If so, this young master is all ears." Old Fu's expression was frigid as he glared at Yang Kai, but he dared not say a word. Who was he kidding? His young lady would be slapped if he said a single word. She already bore resentment against him for the first incident, so if it happened again, he was afraid she would make it so he wouldn't be able to see the next dawn. However, he had already failed his duty as the young lady's guard, because he was completely helpless as she was being bullied. Who knew what kind of punishment would be awaiting him after they returned? The predicament weighed down on his heart. He felt dizzy and sick, his stomach tossing and turning like wine in a shaking jar. He wanted nothing more than to faint right this instant. After all, what the eyes do not see, the heart does not grieve. "Do you really have nothing more to say, old man?" Yang Kai asked, smiling. Old Fu's expression was calm as he stayed silent. He was old and experienced, so how could he fall for Yang Kai's trick? His young lady would be slapped if he spoke again. Yang Kai turned back around and looked at the red-clothed girl. "What about you? Do you have anything to say?" Tears were still streaming down her face, stinging her burning red cheeks. She didn't dare to say anything, so she quickly shook her head back and forth like a rattle. "In that case..." Yang Kai's expression suddenly sank, and he coldly snorted, "Get out!" To Old Fu, those words were like an amnesty. He didn't dare to say anything as he rushed to his young lady and enveloped her in his emperor chi, grabbed her fallen whip, and bolted for the door. However, just as he reached it, he turned his head and shot Yang Kai a cold, hatred-filled glare. He didn't dare to voice a blatant threat because he knew he wasn't Yang Kai's opponent, but he refused to leave in such a shameful manner. Thus, he chose to leave him with a meaningful glare. Zhang Ruoxi didn't stop them and only watched as they retreated. After they disappeared, she made her way to the other side of the house, squatted down, and looked at the girl named Xiao Linger. "Don't be afraid, little sister. We've chased the bad people away." Xiao Linger's cheeks were stained with tears. Perhaps it was because Zhang Ruoxi had saved her and her grandpa. But at this moment, she wasn't frightened at all. She stared wide-eyed at Zhang Ruoxi, seemingly curious about how this elder sister could be even more amazing than her grandpa. Old Ban stood up shakingly and cupped his fists, saying, "Many thanks to this little brother and young lady for your assistance. This old man will be forever indebted. If Yang Kai and Zhang Ruoxi hadn't come here today, he would undoubtedly have no choice but to leave with the red-clothed girl. He didn't care about entering the ancient land as he was confident he would be able to return safely. But how could he rest assured knowing that Xiao Linger would be alone while sick? You are too polite, elder. It was only natural for us to intervene." Zhang Ruoxi smiled slightly, not taking credit. Old Ban sighed and said, "This old man has implicated the two of you. May I know the names of my great benefactors?" Having lived in this desolated city for so long, he'd naturally developed a keen eye for people. The red-clothed girl was undoubtedly of extraordinary status, and his benefactors had offended her for his sake. He was afraid the red-clothed girl would target them for revenge and felt extremely apologetic. Yang Kai slightly smiled and didn't answer. Instead, he just said, "Elder, Xiao Linger's illness seems to be quite severe. It would be best to focus on her recovery and then leave this place as soon as possible. We won't bother you any longer." As he spoke, he sent Zhang Ruoxi a glance, signaling that it was time to leave. Although his main purpose for coming here was to ask Old Ban to guide him into the ancient lands, he would have to abandon his original plan. He couldn't make the old man leave his sick granddaughter alone like this. Furthermore, Yang Kai was confident that he would be able to enter the ancient lands even without Old Ban's guidance. There may just be some more twists and turns on the road. He would only be making things hard for Old Ban if he asked him to guide them. "Grandpa," Xiao Linger suddenly called out in a weak voice. Immediately afterwards, Old Ban shouted, "Please wait." Yang Kai looked back at him. "Little brother, I presume you came to ask this old man to take you into the ancient lands?" Old Ban had no other friends or family, so this was the only reason people visited him. It was what the red-clothed girl came for, and he had no doubt Yang Kai was the same. There was nothing to hide, so Yang Kai nodded. "Yes. In that case, this old man shall ask the two of you to wait outside the entrance of the ancient lands tomorrow. This old man will meet you there and take you inside." Yang Kai raised his brows and said with a slight smile, "Many thanks for your kind offer, but you should take care of Xiao Linger first." Old Ban touched Linger's head and replied, "This is what Xiao Linger wants. I cannot disappoint her." Yang Kai frowned, "But if you lead me into the ancient lands, where will Xiao Linger go? I have lived here for many years and am not without connections. Naturally, I know a safe place that Xiao Linger can go to." He paused and then continued, "This old man possesses nothing of value, and this is all I can do to thank my two benefactors. I hope you will accept this, little brother." At this point, it wouldn't be appropriate for Yang Kai to keep refusing, so he nodded. "Very well. I will thank you in advance, Old Ban. Ruoxi and I will be waiting for you tomorrow at the entrance. Then it's settled. Take care." Old Ban cupped his fists and bowed slightly. Just then, Xiao Linger suddenly called out to them, "Big brother, elder sister, be careful. I've heard Grandpa say that it's very dangerous there. You must come back alive." Zhang Ruoxi smiled upon hearing her. "Okay. Xiao Linger also needs to take good care of herself and grow up quickly." Xiao Linger nodded enthusiastically, her face, which was pale from her illness, blushing a little red. After leaving Old Ban's residence, Yang Kai took Zhang Ruoxi and left the city, heading straight in the direction of the ancient lands. They found its entrance an hour later. They searched for a quiet spot and sat down cross-legged, after which Yang Kai took out the jade slip given to him by Pai San and studied the map of the ancient lands carefully. The ancient lands were filled with danger at every turn. There was no lack of monster beasts and natural arrays, and even an Emperor Realm Master could not guarantee their safety inside. Although Yang Kai was strong, he was not arrogant enough to enter without making the proper preparations. Furthermore, he intended to use this map to see if he could find Xiao Zhao's location. Naturally, it would be best if he could find Xiao Xiao on the perimeter of the ancient lands, but if not, he would have to venture into deeper, more dangerous regions. Oh! Kill, 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 kill them all. 100 kilometers away from the desolate city, on a deserted hillside, the red-clothed girl was seething. Her face was twisted with anger and hatred as she cursed incessantly. She had never suffered a single loss from when she was a child till now, let alone get slapped in public. Although she was terribly frightened at the time, so much that she lost the courage to even speak. When she got to a safe place, the humiliation and rage immediately surged forth. It was so suffocating that it almost made her vomit blood. She had to get revenge, no matter what. She grit her teeth and continued to curse as she held her whip and lashed at the two-third order Dao Source Realm guards over and over again. These two cultivators were talented and had come from a powerful sect. In the outside world, they could be considered top experts. However, facing the red-clothed girl's whip, they didn't dare to dodge or use their source chi to resist. They could only clench their teeth and stay rooted in place. The whip fell once more. Fresh blood flowed, and flesh tore open. Their tattered clothes were already covered in blood. There was also a burst of anger in their eyes. However, the anger was not directed at their own young lady, but Yang Kai. In their minds, they believed that if it weren't for Yang Kai and Zhang Ruoxi, their young lady wouldn't be beating them. It was all Yang Kai's fault. Old Fu stood beside them, terrified that his young lady would also beat him with a whip in her fury, and he didn't dare to speak up. If he, an Emperor Realm Master, was whipped by his weak young lady, he would really lose all face. Fortunately, his young lady seemed to be giving him some consideration. Although she was angry to the point of losing her mind, she didn't punish him openly. Instead, her whip only fell on the two-third order Dao Source Realm cultivators again and again, faster and harder with each lash. They were in so much pain that they couldn't help but look at Old Fu for help. However, Old Fu turned a blind eye, leaving them to howl miserably in their hearts. After venting for a long time, the girl finally seemed to be tired. Gasping for breath, she fell to the ground. Her clothes were damp with sweat, making her graceful body faintly visible. However, no one dared to appreciate this beautiful scenery. Old Fu kept his gaze downward, while the two guards were practically on the verge of death. They stood there trembling and looked as though they could fall at any moment. Old Fu, send a message back to the palace and tell them to quickly send some people here, the red-haired girl ordered suddenly. Old Fu was startled. What do you plan to do, young lady? The red-clothed girl sneered and responded, What do I plan to do? What do you think? Of course, I'm going to capture those two dogs. I'm going to skin them, eat their meat, and drink their blood. I'm going to kill them. You mustn't, young lady. What? Am I supposed to expect you to avenge me? I know you're too scared. Her words were humiliating but true. He didn't dare to go up against Yang Kai. Even so, he advised, Young lady, Sir said that he permitted you to leave this time so you can train your temperament. You cannot bully others again using your status. If Sir were to hear the whole story, young lady, you would never be let out of the palace again. Have you forgotten what happened 3 years ago? As soon as Old Fu mentioned what had happened 3 years ago, the red-clothed girl suddenly seemed to recall something and her face immediately turned pale and filled with fear. 3 years ago, she ventured out just like this and made a small mistake. She bullied several cultivators using her identity to get her way, and the next day, she was caught by her father and was put under house arrest for 3 years. 3 years, 3 whole years. It was truly torturous to be imprisoned for 3 years, so close yet so far to the noise and prosperity of the outside world. Finally, regaining her freedom wasn't easy. If her father caught her again, she was afraid 3 years of confinement would become 30 this time. After being reminded by Old Fu, the red-clothed girl dared not mention sending a message back to the palace again. She would be locked up while that dog couple would remain unscathed. The red-clothed girl's eyes reddened with grievance. Lord Father is biased. He lets Big Brother leave the palace whenever he wants, and he doesn't even have to take guards with him. Lord Father doesn't care if he slaughters people or sets fires to cities. But when it comes to me, I have to not only bring trash along but also abide by so many rules. Lord Father is so unfair. She was filled with resentment and kept on yelling incessantly. But old Fu dared not agree to anything she said. His sir possessed extraordinary strength and ability. It was acceptable for the young lady to say such things because she was his biological daughter, but if he were to agree and his sir found out, he would lose his life. What should I do then? The red-clothed girl stomped her foot. Not being able to vent her anger made her feel uncomfortable all over. It was impractical to ask the palace to send people over while relying on these three good-for-nothings was impossible. But she couldn't just let this go. If she did, she was afraid she would no longer be able to sleep at night. The humiliation would induce a lifelong nightmare, enough to leave a severe psychological shadow in her heart. Old Fu didn't seem to have any ideas either as his expression twisted into one of bitterness. Waste, you're all a bunch of wastes. The more she looked at Old Fu and the two guards, the angrier she became until she burst out. This young lady was bullied, yet you can't do anything. What use do I even have for you? At this moment, Old Fu suddenly lit up as though he'd thought of something. Please calm your anger, young lady. This old master may have thought of a good idea. What? Hurry. Let's hear it. If it succeeds in crushing that dog couple and helping this young lady get revenge, this young lady will reward you handsomely and even put in a few good words for you in front of Lord Father. Old Fu chuckled. Being able to accompany the young lady is already the greatest honor this old master can have. There is no need for. Stop dawdling and spit it out already. The red-clothed girl interrupted him impatiently. Old Fu lightly coughed and said, The power of the palace cannot be mobilized, and this old master is not that little brat's opponent. If the young lady wants revenge, then we can only borrow the hands of outsiders. Outsiders? The red-clothed girl's eyebrows wrinkled in confusion. Who? This old master will have to inquire about that first and see who in the vicinity can be of use to you, young lady. Upon hearing this, the red-clothed girl's beautiful eyes suddenly brightened and she urged anxiously, Then what are you still waiting for? When this young lady was still in the palace, those people were practically tripping over each other while trying to please me. Now that this young lady has a use for them, they definitely won't refuse. Yes, yes, it is an honor to be of use to the young lady. Who would refuse? Old Fu smiled, spewing flattery as he withdrew a communication artifact from his space ring. Please allow this old master a few moments, young lady. He poured his divine sense into the communication artifact, which emitted faint rays of light as it began to send out messages. The red-clothed girl watched on eagerly with an expectant gaze. It seemed as though she could already see Yang Kai and Zhang Ruoxi being surrounded by a group of people, kneeling down and begging her for mercy. The thought of it made her incredibly happy. Her heart was utterly ruthless. When the time came, she intended to make Yang Kai kneel down and lick the dirt off her shoes. Then, she would ruin the woman's face, strip her naked, and throw her onto the busiest street here. Anyone who dares to provoke this young lady will suffer the consequences. I have found someone, Old Fu exclaimed after some time. Who is it? She asked excitedly. Some time ago, many people from the Netherworld sect entered the ancient lands, including Elder Hua Fei Chun, Old Fu replied. Hua Fei Chun. The red-clothed girl raised her eyebrows. The Second-Order Emperor Realm Master who has a good relationship with you? Yes, him. The red-clothed girl clapped her hands together. Good. With Hua Fei Chun on our side, that dog couple won't be able to escape from my palm. Old Fu, quickly send a message to those Netherworld sect people and tell them to get out of the ancient lands. Just say that this young lady has an order for him. There is no need for that, young Mississippi. We will be able to find him once we enter the ancient lands, Old Fu said. Upon hearing that, she frowned. Find him? Why? Old Fu couldn't help but think that this little girl's intelligence was limited. How could she not even understand something so simple? If she were someone else, he would have slapped her already for her foolishness. However, since she was his young lady, he could only patiently explain, Young lady, what do you think that dog couple's purpose for going to that old man is? The red-clothed girl looked at him blankly. What? The corner of old Fu's mouth twitched. Still, he had to push down his frustration and explained, "What was our purpose for going to see that old man? So he can guide us into the ancient lands." The red-clothed girl exclaimed, "Didn't the people here say that he's the best guide in the entire city? Why else would this noble young lady go to that run-down shack of his?" After she said this, she seemed to have been hit with a great realization. That dog couple was also there to get the old man to take them into the ancient lands. Old Fu was relieved. "Oh, thank heavens, you finally figured it out." It wasn't easy on his conscience, but he had to praise her. As expected, the young lady is bright and talented. The red-clothed girl coldly snorted. "Why did you have to make such a simple matter sound so complicated? You could have just said that they're also going to enter the ancient lands." "Ha-ha." Old Fu forced a smile and then continued. "Since they are going to enter the ancient land, we should dispose of them there to avoid being found out." "Good." The red-clothed girl nodded and waved a hand. "In that case, let's also enter the ancient lands. Old Fu, send that Hua Feichen a message and tell him to cooperate with this young lady. After this is over, they will be rewarded. This subordinate will obey." Old Fu hurriedly cupped his fists in response. Thus, the group of 4 rushed towards the ancient lands. An hour later, they reached the entrance of the canyon. Not far away, Yang Kai, who was inspecting the jade slip, suddenly raised his head and glanced in that direction. "What is it, sir?" Zhang Ruoxi looked at him questioningly. "It's nothing," Yang Kai responded. "Just that the domineering young lady and her guards have entered the ancient lands." Humph! An unhappy expression appeared on Zhang Ruoxi's face. For people like her who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth, entering the ancient lands is no different from courting death. Yang Kai smiled slightly. "Although she is spoiled and tyrannical, I believe she will survive the ancient lands." "Why are you defending her, sir?" Zhang Ruoxi couldn't help but pout. "It's not that I'm defending her, but her background is certainly extraordinary. She must possess numerous treasures, so unless a great incident happens, her life should not be in any danger," Yang Kai explained. "An extraordinary background?" Zhang Ruoxi murmured, and she asked suddenly, "Is that why you let them go so easily, sir?" Yang Kai nodded. "She and that old Fu are nothing to worry about, but if I really killed them, I'm afraid it would incur the wrath of some truly powerful figures. Moreover, she didn't kill anyone, so hopefully, she'll learn from this setback." "I doubt that's possible, sir." Zhang Ruoxi snorted. Yang Kai glanced at her, then looked at the wine bottle in her hand, and said, "Wild wine is good, but don't drink too quickly. Focus on feeling the wild force. It'll benefit you greatly once we enter the ancient lands." "Yes," Zhang Ruoxi replied softly. Perhaps it was due to the alcohol, but her face was flushed, her eyes slightly wet, and her breathing a little heavy. Suddenly, Yang Kai thought of something and reached into his space ring. "By the way, this belongs to you." He handed the item to her. "The Space Spirit Jade." Zhang Ruoxi exclaimed softly. "This is your family's ancestral artifact, and it only reacts to you. Previously, since your cultivation level was too low, I didn't dare to give it to you. Now, you have the ability to protect yourself. When you have the time, sit down and probe its secrets. You may be able to discover the secret behind your bloodline power." Zhang Ruoxi accepted it solemnly. At that moment, the Space Spirit Jade began to give off peculiar fluctuations, and images of a magnificent scenery appeared on its smooth surface. Most of these images were of great rivers and spiritual mountains as beautiful as brocade, and among them, there were numerous glorious pavilions and towers. Countless rare monster beasts roamed the skies and land, emitting extremely powerful auras that startled the birds and insects. Years ago, when Zhang Ruoxi first touched the Space Spirit Jade, these images had also appeared. Now, seeing them appear again, they were both at a loss. Neither of them knew what these images meant. Yang Kai used to believe that this Space Spirit Jade was hiding a space divine ability. After all, someone had once used it to cultivate the Tao of space. However, he had probed into it many times and found nothing special about it. It seemed that due to some mysterious mechanism, it would only react in Zhang Ruoxi's hands. Suddenly, she raised her head and stared intensely into the ancient lands. Yang Kai looked at her skeptically and quickly asked, "What's wrong?" It wasn't until several moments later that Zhang Ruoxi snapped out of her daze and said, "Sir, something is calling out to me from there." "Calling out to you?" Yang Kai was slightly surprised. The place Zhang Ruoxi was looking at was the depths of the ancient lands, but what could possibly be calling her from there? Moreover, it happened just after she received the space spirit jade. Could the two be related? "Are you sure?" Zhang Ruoxi frowned. Then after a long silence, she shook her head. "No. It was there for a moment, and now it's gone. There may be a connection between the space spirit jade and the ancient wildlands. Maybe the jade originated from there. Inspect it carefully again once we enter, and you may discover something." The next day, Yang Kai suddenly opened his eyes and said in a low voice, "He's here." Upon hearing this, Zhang Ruoxi quickly put the space spirit jade away. Then she stood up and focused her gaze forward. A figure was running in their direction, constantly looking around, as though looking for something. Yang Kai sent out a sliver of divine sense to guide him, and the man immediately felt it and ran over, soon arriving in front of them. "I apologize for the wait, little brother," Old Ban said. "You are too polite, Old Ban," Yang Kai replied. "We'll be troubling you." Old Ban smiled. "Rest assured. With me as your guide, entering the ancient lands safely is guaranteed." When he said this, his face was filled with confidence. It was a stark contrast from the submissiveness he showed when he was beaten by the red-clothed girl the day before. Yang Kai nodded to himself. Pai San was right to introduce Old Ban to him. His cultivation level may be low, but Old Ban had undoubtedly mastered a safe passage to and from the ancient lands, or at least understood some of the patterns there. Otherwise, with his cultivation, he would not be so confident. "The two of you should refine this before we enter the ancient lands," Old Ban said, handing something to Yang Kai and Zhang Ruoxi. Yang Kai took it and found that it was something similar to a sound bead, but not exactly. Moreover, the workmanship was extremely rough. It didn't look like it was made by a professional artifact refiner, but rather a random person with whatever materials they had. "What is this?" Yang Kai looked at Old Ban questioningly. "The ancient land's passageway is shrouded in a strange fog that interferes with one's divine sense. It is easy to get lost if you enter without guidance." This old man gathered some stones from the passageway and created these communication beads. They can be used to sense each other's locations and will be unaffected by the strange fog. However, the detection range is only 100 meters, so the two of you must follow me closely, Old Ban explained. Yang Kai nodded to express his understanding. "Good." Afterward, he and Zhang Ruoxi began to refine the jade beads. They weren't difficult to refine, and after only a stick of incense's worth of time, they both finished. As they held them in the palms of their hands, they could clearly sense the location of the other two jade beads. It was extremely convenient. Old Ban was right. With the help of these jade beads, it would be very unlikely for him to lose Zhang Ruoxi and Old Ban. "Now that we're ready, let's go. Before we enter though, this old man must remind you again that you must stay close to me. Otherwise, if you get lost, it will be difficult to find your way out again." Old Ban solemnly warned Yang Kai to not be dependent on his cultivation, even giving a special example. Over 30 years ago, an Emperor Realm Master got lost and remained in the strange fog for an entire decade. 10 years, Yang Kai exclaimed in shock. Old Ban nodded solemnly. "Indeed. How come you know such specific details about it, Old Ban?" Zhang Ruoxi asked. She wasn't doubting him, but just curious. Even if an Emperor Realm Master was lost in the strange fog for 10 years, how would an outsider like Old Ban know? Even if he knew the ancient land's passageway like the palm of his hand, his cultivation level wasn't high enough for him to be able to observe a person for 10 years under the interference of the strange fog. Because in those 10 years, I encountered that person many times in the passageway. Every time, I would see her wandering aimlessly like a ghost. I was almost injured by her multiple times, but thankfully, I was able to run away, he replied. What happened to that person in the end? She asked nervously. Old Ban shook his head. I don't know. Maybe she died somewhere inside the passageway, or maybe she found an opportunity to escape 20 years ago. Nonetheless, I never saw her again. She seemed to have been trapped there for a long time, so her consciousness became a little muddled. How pitiful! Zhang Ruoxi sighed. A woman, no matter how strong, was still a woman. How did she spend those 10 years, trapped and alone in the strange fog? Did she escape or die in the end? What would become of me if I were to be trapped for 10 years in this strange fog? Zhang Ruoxi shuddered while thinking about it. However, this was just an anecdote from the past that Old Ban mentioned with the intent of warning Yang Kai and Zhang Ruoxi to be careful, nothing more. Rest assured, Old Ban. We'll stay beside you at all times. Yang Kai reassured. All right then, let's go. Old Ban nodded, waved his hand, and headed towards the ancient land's passageway. Yang Kai and Zhang Ruoxi followed closely. While they were waiting for Old Ban, Yang Kai had taken some time to inspect the ancient land's passageway. It appeared to be a large canyon spanning over a dozen kilometers in width and an untold distance in depth. Countless cultivators had entered, each one looking more confident and energetic than the last, eager to go inside and hunt for treasures. This included the red-clothed girl's entourage. For the first 20 kilometers or so, it was still relatively easy to see. Even if there was some fog, it didn't affect their vision. However, the deeper they traveled, the thicker the fog became, and at around 50 kilometers, they would no longer be able to see their fingers. When Yang Kai tried to use his divine sense to probe around him, he felt that he was trying to stretch an elastic piece of cotton. His divine sense bounced back, so he couldn't see any deeper into the fog. Of course, he wasn't surprised, as he'd long known about this strange fog that could turn many of the cultivators in the desolate city pale just at its mention. Old Ban moved like he was flying, without rest, and before long, they reached the 50-kilometer mark. At this point, the strange fog took full effect. Yang Kai and Zhang Ruoxi suddenly felt like they had plunged into the bottomless deep sea. Their vision became dark, and even their divine senses could only extend about 10 meters from their bodies. Yang Kai was shocked. Nature really is uncanny. A normal person would never be able to set up such a powerful restriction. If the strange fog was placed around a sect, it would undoubtedly be comparable to one of the greatest sect defending arrays. Anyone who dared to invade would get completely lost in it. Although he was a First-Order Emperor Realm Master, his divine sense was no worse than a Second-Order Emperor Realm Master's. Yet, even he couldn't penetrate this strange fog. How many people in the star boundary would be capable of prying into the dangers and secrets of this strange fog? Perhaps only a Third-Order Emperor Realm Master would be able to do this. After stepping into the area of strange fog, Old Ban suddenly slowed down his steps and quickly said, "Now, you must focus on the jade beads and follow my location closely, so we don't get separated." "Yes." Behind him, Zhang Ruoxi nodded repeatedly. In fact, there was no need for another reminder. Yang Kai and Zhang Ruoxi had already grasped jade beads in their hands and poured their divine sense inside as soon as they entered the strange fog. This way, even though they couldn't see in front of them and the range of their divine sense was limited, they could still follow Old Ban. An odd, creepy crunch sounded beneath their feet, as though they had stepped on something and crushed it. Curious, Yang Kai let out some divine sense to investigate. When he saw what was beneath his feet, he couldn't help but suck in a breath, because the ground here was covered with white bones from an untold number of skeletons. Having been weathered for so long, they were extremely brittle and immediately turned into dust when trodden upon. Yang Kai quietly looked at Zhang Ruoxi and saw that she didn't seem to be too scared. Although she looked a little nervous, it wasn't fear, so he was relieved. She was quick to adapt. Old Ban's voice came from the front. Through the ages, countless heroes have died in the ancient land's passageway. This place is almost entirely paved with white bones. Their flesh and blood withered away, but their skeletons remained here. Sometimes, their souls find the opportunity to continue on, possibly as a result of the bizarre characteristics of this fog, making it easy for them to become Een souls. Een souls. Zhang Ruoxi shuddered, goosebumps raising all over her body. She wasn't afraid of the bones on the ground, but the mention of the souls frightened her greatly. Old Ban continued. They hide in this strange fog and come out to attack people from time to time. As a matter of fact, they are one of the 3 fatal dangers of the ancient land's passageway. Regular souls aside, it would be extremely troublesome if we encounter a ghost general or ghost lord. Not only that, but at the heart of the passageway, there is a powerful ghost king. It is said to be transformed from the soul of a dead second-order Emperor Realm Master. Anyone who has even the slightest understanding of the passageway knows this and would avoid the central region. As he was speaking, Zhang Ruoxi suddenly cried out as though frightened by something. Immediate after, she unleashed her source qi and sent a fierce blow in a certain direction. The energy surged forth with terrifying momentum, and in that direction, there was suddenly a shrill cry as sharp as a baby's wail at night. The instant she made a move, Yang Kai had sent out his divine sense to investigate. He found at an unknown point in time, half a meter to her right, a strange energy hidden within the fog which gathered into a distorted face had approached her and was staring at her curiously. But with Zhang Ruoxi's blow, the distorted face immediately became ferocious. Old Ban's face changed, and he whispered, Ain Soul. He was the weakest in their group, so even if he sent out his divine sense, he wouldn't be able to tell what had happened to Zhang Ruoxi, so he could only ask Yang Kai. Upon hearing Old Ban's question, Zhang Ruoxi said in a trembling voice, I don't know if it's Ain Soul, but it has no physical body, and it seems to be very angry. Ordinary attacks have no effect on them, so when it draws near, use a soul attack. Don't be afraid, young lady, with your cultivation. An ordinary soul cannot harm you. Only the ghosts with higher cultivation, like a ghost general or ghost lord, could pose a threat, so you must remain calm and act accordingly, Old Ban quickly told her. He seemed to be quite familiar with encounters like this and knew how to handle them. Zhang Ruoxi took a deep breath and spread out her divine sense, paying attention to the movement of the soul. It appeared that the soul was indeed enraged after being attacked. Its distorted facial features became even more ferocious and twisted, and its semi-transparent body retreated slightly into the strange fog, then rolled up into a chilling gust of wind and lunged at Zhang Ruoxi. Before it reached her, a sharp scream could be heard. It was not only harsh but also contained a kind of strange spiritual energy that threatened to tear through Zhang Ruoxi's knowledge sea defenses. However, after being warned by Old Ban, Zhang Ruoxi was prepared. Although her face was still a little pale, she didn't make a sound, waiting until the moment the soul was just a meter away from her before suddenly releasing a burst of pure spiritual energy. The soul's semi-transparent body was like a water droplet that bumped into a hard surface, suddenly splitting and disappearing with a shrill scream. Ha! Zhang Ruoxi took a breath and slowly calmed down. After killing a soul herself, she realized they weren't that scary after all. At the front, Old Ban reminded, the souls here can be dealt with by even this old man. So long as you can remain calm, young lady, they are no threat at all. However, you may have noticed that in this bizarre environment, the souls have cultivated a special ability which is quite overwhelming. If you have a soul-type defensive artifact, you should activate it for good measure. He didn't tell Yang Kai such things because he knew that an Emperor Realm Master didn't need such precautions or warnings. Zhang Ruoxi stuck out her tongue. I don't have a soul-type artifact. She only had 2 artifacts on her body. One was the Pink Cloud's Phoenix robe given to her by Divine Spirit Xianxia, and the other was the 10,000 Beast seal from Yang Kai. Hearing this, Old Ban didn't say any more and focused on leading the way. As they went, souls would appear from time to disturb them. However, because Old Ban was familiar with the passageway, the paths he chose were all quite safe, and they didn't encounter any strong souls. Naturally, none of the ones that did get in their way met with good ends. Rather than Yang Kai, it was Zhang Ruoxi who handled all of them. After half an hour, she became so familiar with killing them that she didn't even blink when she did so anymore. Due to the interference of the strange fog, Yang Kai couldn't tell where they were. However, judging from Old Ban's actions, they had taken a path with many torturous twists and turns. From time to time, Old Ban would stop to observe the nearby terrain and then turn in a different direction entirely. Sometimes he would even stand in one spot for a long time doing nothing, and then move again several moments later. Yang Kai felt that his guess was right. The best guide in the entire city had figured out a way to safely enter the ancient lands every time. However, since it was Old Ban's secret and also his only way to make a living, Yang Kai didn't probe into it. Half a day later, Yang Kai had completely lost sense of where they were. After Zhang Ruoxi dealt with a soul, the leading Old Ban suddenly halted. He lifted his nose and sniffed the air. Only the sound of light breathing could be heard. Yang Kai raised his brow, realizing that Old Ban had discovered something, and released his divine sense so he could react quickly. After sniffing the air for a while, Old Ban's expression suddenly changed and he shouted, "Follow me closely, and don't fall behind a single step." As soon as the words left his lips, he sprinted forward. Old Ban had been extremely cautious the entire time, never daring to make any rash movements. But now, he was acting so frantically, so he must have noticed some approaching danger. Although Yang Kai wasn't as experienced as Old Ban in this place, he also felt an approaching sense of crisis. It seemed that something dangerous was coming. As an Emperor Realm Master, Yang Kai was extremely sensitive to danger. Furthermore, it was obvious from Old Ban's reaction that the situation had gone awry. Yang Kai quickly released his Emperor Qi to cover Zhang Ruoxi, stepped forward, and followed Old Ban closely. Zhang Ruoxi didn't say a word, but the look on her face revealed her nervousness. The three quickly shuttled through the strange fog, and within 10 breaths of time, Old Ban stopped again and took in a breath. His body, which was rushing forward, suddenly stopped. Then, with a slight shift of his feet, he leapt back and shouted simultaneously, "Retreat!" Yang Kai's reaction was not slow. Although he had been right behind Old Ban, he'd stepped back as soon as Old Ban moved. Simultaneously, he locked his divine sense on an area in front of him to scan for any changes. Before Yang Kai could find out what was happening, explosive thunder entered his ears and a purple bolt of light came crashing to the ground, leaving a black pit about 4 meters wide. Everything in that region turned into ashes. Yang Kai let out a choked cry as wariness flashed through his eyes and cold sweat poured down his forehead as he grit his teeth and muttered, "Soul-extinguishing divine thunder." He was only curious about what would happen but never expected this one bolt of falling thunder to completely cut off his thread of divine sense. In the face of this falling thunder, his divine sense that was on par with a second-order Emperor realm was as akin to a baby's fist. If it were an ordinary person, they would be holding their heads and howling miserably right now. Although Yang Kai felt extremely uncomfortable, he had the soul-warming lotus protecting him. A sense of coolness emerged from the soul-warming lotus and infused into his mind, which greatly alleviated his pain. Therefore, although he still looked pale, it was not a big problem. The location of the bolt of thunder was where Old Ban had been standing. There was no doubt that if he hadn't moved away at the last moment, his soul would have been extinguished. It was truly curious how he was able to avoid dangerous situations at the most crucial moments. "Follow me," Old Ban continued shouting. Yang Kai didn't dare to neglect his instructions and quickly followed. After 5 breaths worth of time, there was another crackling sound behind him, and the earth under his feet began to shake, as if thousands of troops were trampling towards them. Although Yang Kai couldn't see what had happened behind him, he could infer from the shocking movement that several bolts of purple lightning had just fallen. In his heart, he was becoming more and more impressed with Old Ban. When Pai San told him to seek out Old Ban, Yang Kai had agreed but regarded his advice casually. He'd believed that with his current strength, entering the ancient lands without a guide would be no problem. However, after this incident, Yang Kai realized that he had been treating this place too lightly. The strength of the thunderbolt just now was unimaginable, and if Old Ban hadn't helped him and Zhang Ruoxi avoid it, Yang Kai was certain it would be difficult to get past even with his current cultivation. The thunder was so terrifying and erratic, while the strange fog could entrap an Emperor Realm Master for over 10 years. The booms of purple lightning falling sounded from all directions, and although the strange fog was obstructing his sight, Yang Kai could still vaguely see the faint purple flashes in the mist, making for a truly shocking sight. They suddenly seemed to have entered a sea of thunder, surrounded by crises. Zhang Ruoxi didn't dare to move at will, and simply allowed Yang Kai to envelop her with his emperor qi and carry her along. In front of them, Old Ban's movements seemed entirely irregular, but he was able to somehow lead them to avoid all of the falling thunder. He was like the most experienced sailor who could conquer the majestic sea and witness the mesmerizing scenery of its deepest depths while only operating a wooden boat. All of a sudden, a scream came from nearby. It seemed that some cultivator had been hit by falling thunder and was crying out for help tragically. However, the voice stopped after just a moment, as if it was strangled by the neck. One could imagine how that cultivator met their end. The souls that used to be everywhere were all gone now. Fortunately, with Old Ban guiding them, they were able to avoid every bolt of thunder and safely travel through the fog. After an unknown amount of time, the falling thunder became weaker and weaker, until finally, it fell silent completely. However, it wasn't until several paces later that Old Ban finally stopped and bent over, his face pale and bloodless as he gasped for air. Yang Kai stood close behind him and used his divine sense to check their surroundings for potential threats. "Sir, are you okay?" Zhang Ruoxi looked at him nervously. Yang Kai had obviously been injured by the first bolt of thunder. At the time, she didn't dare to disturb him and only decided to ask after determining that his condition had stabilized. He motioned that he was all right. Then he turned to Old Ban and asked, "Old Ban, are we safe now?" The fear of the soul extinguishing divine thunder still lingered in his mind. Upon hearing Yang Kai's question, Old Ban chuckled bitterly. "Safe? This is just the beginning." Yang Kai's face changed. Could it be that the soul extinguishing thunder? Old Ban shook his head. "We do not need to worry about it anymore. Now that the thunder tide has passed, it will not happen again within this 1 month. There will only be stray bolts here and there. What we need to guard against now is the astral wind." Previously, Pai San had warned Yang Kai about the 3 deadly dangers of the ancient land passageway: the strange fog, the thunder tide, and the astral wind. The strange fog existed everywhere in the passageway, and anyone who wasn't familiar with the path would easily get lost in it. As for the thunder, Yang Kai had personally experienced its terrifying power when his divine sense was easily cut off by a single bolt. Since the astral wind was mentioned alongside the falling thunder, it was undoubtedly something that couldn't be looked down upon. Moreover, Old Ban's face was very grim at the moment, which only made Yang Kai feel more apprehensive. "How powerful is the astral wind?" Yang Kai asked in a low voice. Old Ban responded, "In terms of direct lethality, the falling thunder is much stronger. However, anyone who is familiar with this passageway will tell you that they would rather face the thunder tide than the astral wind." "Why is that?" Zhang Ruoxi's expression was blank with confusion. "Because the astral wind does not stop. Although it is not instantaneously lethal like the falling thunder, it is continuous. Passing through it feels like your flesh is being shaved off by the sharpest of artifacts, and it can not only tear away at a cultivator's physique but also grind down their soul. If one stays in the astral wind for a long time, they will die a miserable death." Upon hearing this, she immediately broke out in a cold sweat. It sounded like being attacked by the astral wind was like being cut by a blunt knife over and over again, and the scariest thing was that it could even grind down the soul. Old Ban continued solemnly, "Now that the thunder tide has passed, a howling wind will sweep through the area. If we fail to find shelter within the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, we will die." Astral wind. Yang Kai's face sank. Although he had never heard of it before, he could imagine what it was like. "Is there a shelter around here?" Old Ban looked around at their surroundings before quickly stating. In order to avoid the thunder tide earlier, this old man had to take some unplanned turns. "Thus, I am not very familiar with this area, but if my guess is right, this should be the heart of the passageway." "The heart?" Zhang Ruoxi frowned. Then suddenly, her expression shifted. "Old Ban, didn't you say that the core region is where?" Before she could finish speaking, 2 dots of glowing red light shone out from the distance. It was unobstructed by the strange fog, so they could see it very clearly. An extreme chill filled the air as a frigid domain enveloped Zhang Ruoxi and Old Ban, causing them to shiver. "Ah!" she cried out, as she had discovered that the glowing red dots were actually a pair of eyes. They seemed to be filled with unimaginable anger and seemed to be pouring out blood. Just one glance at them was enough to petrify a person. "The Ghost King," Yang Kai murmured. Instead of looking away, he unleashed his vast spiritual energy, which turned into a pure soul attack and flew directly toward the Ghost King. After the silent collision, his face slightly paled. The red lights flashed with smugness as its power didn't falter but increased instead, and it suddenly charged forth, seemingly intent on taking advantage of its victory to crush Yang Kai to dust. Immediately, Yang Kai's mind sank into chaos. He felt as though he had plunged into hell's purgatory, surrounded by horrifying, hostile ghosts. Their strange calls filled their ears as they tried to bite and claw at him, to seize him and drink his blood and eat his flesh. They were truly disgusting, hideous, and terrible. Demon Eye of Annihilation. Yang Kai no longer dared to hold back. His right eye instantly turned golden in color, shining with majestic brilliance. From his golden pupil, a strange force flowed out, dispelling the illusion and stabilizing his mind. Not only that, but there was a strange attraction from his right eye, like a bottomless abyss, that sought to pull the Ghost King inside and trap it forever. Humph! From the depths of the strange fog, a cold snort rang out. It seemed that the Ghost King was a little angry because of Yang Kai's counterattack, and a dark wind began to blow, causing the chill in the air to suddenly intensify, physically freezing the earth around them. Amidst the wailing, translucent ghost claws erupted from the earth and grabbed at the three people's ankles. The changes happened almost instantaneously, and Old Ban and Zhang Ruoxi weren't strong enough to resist them. So as soon as the Ghost King snorted, they fell into a state of confusion and seemed to lose consciousness, simply staring forward without any other reaction. Yang Kai reached out and lifted them up while shouting to the Ghost King, "Ghost King, we are just escaping the thunder tide and passed here by accident. We don't mean to disturb you. Please allow us to pass." "Kiki?" The Ghost King's grating laughter resounded from all directions, making it impossible to tell where it originated from. At the same time, the two red lights in the fog disappeared. The Ghost King had erased its presence. The souls that had disappeared, due to the falling thunder, emerged again and hid in the strange fog. They swarmed around Yang Kai's group, waiting for an opportunity to strike. The ghost claws that had come out of the ground gradually solidified and continued to target Yang Kai, but they all retreated with a hiss after coming into contact with his Emperor Qi. Yang Kai turned his head and stared in a certain direction and coldly snorted, "I suggest that you don't get complacent, Ghost King." With this, the Ghost King was completely enraged, and a huge ghost claw suddenly emerged from the depths of the strange fog. It slashed down on Yang Kai like a tall mountain, the claw itself seemingly sharp enough to tear through space. "You're overestimating yourself." Yang Kai's spiritual energy surged forth, and a column of light shot out from his forehead. Instead of going upwards to meet the ghost claw, it went in another direction, transforming into a long saber that cut through the air. Soul-splitting saber, heaven-severing slash. As the attack landed, a shrill wail sounded from within the strange fog. At the same time, the huge ghost claw above Yang Kai's head flickered and disappeared, along with countless ghost hands rising up from under the ground. The souls gathered around them were stunned for a moment, and then they screamed and scattered. In the blink of an eye, their surroundings returned to peace, as though no fight had happened at all. Yang Kai knew that if it weren't for this display of strength, the Ghost King wouldn't have retreated. Moreover, the fact that his secret technique, heaven-severing slash, executed with an attack from his Soul Emperor artifact, had only injured the Ghost King somewhat was astounding. As expected, this Ghost King hidden within the strange fog would be difficult to deal with. If it weren't for their circumstances, Yang Kai wouldn't have bothered to waste so many words trying to negotiate. However, since they were amid the strange fog, he really didn't want to fight unless absolutely necessary. As soon as the Ghost King retreated, Zhang Ruoxi and Old Ban woke up. Evidently, they understood what just happened to them, and their hearts pounded as cold sweat dripped down their foreheads. Time is running out. We must hurry. Old Ban didn't ask why the Ghost King retreated and simply continued to lead the way. The sound of the astral wind was approaching, and if they failed to find a shelter by the time it arrived, they would certainly die. Old Ban observed the landscape from time to time, occasionally changing direction. In the beginning, he seemed to be hesitant, unsure whether he was going in the right direction, but after a while, he suddenly began to go faster and no longer hesitated as much. Seeing this, Xianxia knew that he had found the right path again. After all, Old Ban was so familiar with this place that even if they went off track for a while, it shouldn't be difficult for him to return to the right path. As time went by, a gentle breeze began to blow. It wasn't strong, but it made one's skin sting, as though cut by a small knife. But if this light breeze was already like this, one could only imagine how painful the astral wind would be once he truly began to blow. Both Xianxia and Zhang Ruoxi could tell that Old Ban was right. The astral wind was definitely a more terrible disaster than the thunder tide. Although the falling thunder was deadly, it fell sporadically and was easy to find a safe place to hide from. However, with the astral wind, the entire passageway was a danger zone. The wind gradually picked up. For Xianxia, who had tough skin and strong cultivation, it was still manageable. However, Zhang Ruoxi and Old Ban had to push their source chi to protect themselves from the astral wind's effects. Over there! Old Ban suddenly exclaimed with joy, pointing in a certain direction and immediately picking up his pace. Hopefully, there is still room there. Before Xianxia understood what he meant by room, he saw Old Ban's body flash and reappear where he had pointed. Xianxia quickly followed suit with Zhang Ruoxi and found that the place Old Ban had pointed at was actually a cave. Strangely enough, everything seemed to be restored to normal upon entering the cave. Their vision was perfectly restored, and even the strange fog was gone. Only a faint whistling sound of the wind could be heard. Looking around, the cave was quite narrow and spanned about 15 meters in depth and would become crowded with 10 people inside. Before the arrival of Xianxia and his group, 6 cultivators had already taken shelter here. These people obviously knew about the astral wind, so they found a safe haven early and hid in it, waiting for the storm to pass. The cultivations of the people in the cave ranged from first-order Dao Source Realm to the third order. After determining that none of them were Emperor Realm Masters, Xianxia stopped paying them much heed. They also looked at Xianxia when he entered and didn't show much reaction other than some bright eyes when Zhang Ruoxi followed him in. "Little brother, young lady, come over here. There's space here." Old Ban beckoned them over. There was space in a corner where 3 people could sit down cross-legged and quietly wait for the howling wind to pass. The other people in the cave seemed to be acting alone, each of them silent as a stone. The entire cave was quiet for some time as only the sound of the wind outside could be heard, making it feel as though they had plunged into the cold winter. After a while, the wind grew louder and several more people rushed in from the outside, taking up the rest of the place. The cave was truly small, barely able to accommodate over 10 people, so the cultivators who came in later had no choice but to stand near the cave entrance. They were all extremely nervous, praying that the astral wind wouldn't blow in, because they would be the first ones to suffer if it did. "Old Ban, how long will the wind last?" Xianxia observed for a while and asked upon noticing that the wind was only growing stronger. "It's difficult to say. Could be over in just half a day, or it could take up to 6 days to cease. The astral wind usually comes and goes without pattern, although it always rages right after a thunder tide. You must remember this for when you return from the ancient lands, little brother," Old Ban replied. Xianxia nodded. "Many thanks for your reminder, Old Ban. However, you don't have to worry too much. Although the astral wind is fearsome, you can rest easy as long as you find a cave like this before it arrives." Old Ban continued with a smile. Xianxia raised his eyebrows. "You mean, there are other caves like this in the passageway?" "Naturally," Old Ban nodded and continued. "The ancient land's passageway is enclosed on both sides, and numerous caves exist along those cliff faces. Don't take this old man's word for it, but I believe there are always around 10 spots to take in each shelter. Moreover, the caves seem to have been formed naturally in the special environment, so they're extremely sturdy and can't be destroyed by ordinary attacks. You must find one before it's too late, or there'll be no more space left. We were lucky this time. Every year, countless cultivators die in this passageway because they can't find shelter. Even if they do find one, getting here before the astral wind starts is a whole other matter. Upon hearing this, Zhang Ruo, she couldn't help but stick out her tongue. No wonder when we got here, we saw so many bones at the entrance of the cave. Old Ban shook his head and sighed. No, not all of those corpses are due to the astral wind. Most of them were caused by humans. She frowned, but before she could ask what he meant, he continued. You will see what this old man means soon, young lady. Although skeptical, she didn't ask anymore. Just then, a figure suddenly approached from the outside and rushed fiercely towards the cave. However, without waiting for the figure to draw near, a thin cultivator standing by the entrance suddenly raised his hand and unleashed an attack. The figure didn't show any weakness and returned the attack with his own. A loud bang rang out in the next moment, and both cultivators remained unmoved. They seemed to be equally matched. In the next moment, a sorry figure landed at the entrance of the cave. His eyes filled with hatred and impatience towards the man who was blocking him from entering the cave. There is no space left here. Please go elsewhere, friend. The skinny cultivator coldly snorted and said with a displeased look, Where else can I go? The newcomer gnashed his teeth. He had run all the way here and looked like he had suffered a lot from the astral wind. Evidently, his energy was rapidly depleting, as the protective halo around his body was flickering. Now, he was being denied entry after finally finding shelter, so naturally he was infuriated. However, the thin cultivator wasn't an easy opponent. If they really were to start fighting, it would be impossible to tell who would win. The newcomer was in no mood to do that when his most pressing concern was finding shelter before the astral wind arrived with full force. His gaze swept past the thin cultivator into the cave. Since there were no spots, he just had to snatch one. As a first-order Dao Source Realm Master, Old Ban was one of the weakest cultivators inside and was undoubtedly the easiest target. However, before the newcomer could open his mouth to drive Old Ban out, he suddenly noticed Xianxia and frowned. Although Xianxia was just sitting cross-legged and didn't release his aura, he was still an Emperor Realm Master. The newcomer couldn't see through his cultivation, and Xianxia and Old Ban were clearly companions. Regardless of what Xianxia's cultivation really was, the newcomer didn't want to risk getting into more trouble. With barely any hesitation, the newcomer's eyes moved away from Old Ban's body to a different corner of the cave. He stretched out a finger and shouted, Boy! Get out of here. I want your spot. He was pointing at a young man who looked to be in his early 30s. The young man had been hiding in the dark and shrinking into himself the entire time, as if he didn't want anyone to notice his existence. His cultivation, like Old Ban, was only first-order Dao Source Realm. Upon hearing the newcomer's demand, the young man shuddered and pretended that he didn't hear anything. The newcomer sneered, seeing this. I'll give you 3 breaths of time to get out. If you don't, I'll have no choice but drag you out myself. Whether you live or die will be entirely up to you. Seeing that he had no choice, the young man raised his head and wailed, Why me? Why is it me? He was the first to enter the cave after the thunder tide and had even hidden deep inside to avoid encountering a situation like this. Yet he was still called out. The astral wind was approaching, and there was no other place to take shelter. If he went out now, he would surely die. The newcomer was about 2 times stronger than him, so he wouldn't be able to resist if it turned into a fight. Therefore, despite his rage, the young man was also helpless. The newcomer sneered, A weakling like you shouldn't have tried to enter the ancient lands. However, since you did anyway, you should have been prepared to die here. Now scram. I won't. If I go out now, I'll die. Don't push me. If you do, I'll self-detonate and drag everyone here down with me. As soon as this threat came out, several people's faces darkened. They were evidently displeased with his threat. However, the stronger ones didn't mind at all. After all, even if this young man wanted to self-destruct, he would need to find an opportunity first. Out of the many people present in the cave, at least half of them could subdue him if he actually tried to blow himself up. Ha ha ha! The man burst out laughing and stared at the young man mockingly. If you want to self-destruct, go ahead. Let's see if you can. He appeared confident and fearless, which made the young man panic. The young man could only look around and plead, "Sirs, please help me. I don't want to go out and die. Please, sirs, stand and uphold justice here." As he spoke, he cupped his fists and held them against his chest, just one step away from kneeling down to beg. However, everyone here was a stranger, so who would bother to help him in this type of situation? Thus, no one answered him. Zhang Ruoshi couldn't bear it and glanced at Yang Kai, but seeing that he wasn't going to respond either, she could only grit her teeth. A look of impatience appeared on the newcomer's face and he snapped, "I'll give you one last chance to get out yourself, otherwise, don't blame me for using force." As the words fell, he reached out and grabbed the young man. Although the cave was small and crowded, the newcomer was a third-order Dao Source Realm Master, so he was able to grab the young man without accidentally touching anyone else. Judging from his action, he planned to just grab the young man and throw him out to make room for himself. The young man suddenly became dazed. Facing the attack of a third-order Dao Source Realm Master, he had no way to defend at all, nor did he really have the courage to detonate himself. So all he could do was stand there and wait for his demise, until, just then, there was a gleam and Source Chi burst forth. With a slight grunt, the newcomer staggered back a few steps. When he regained his balance, he was furious. "Who did that? Who dares to interfere in my business?" It was obvious that someone had stopped his attack just now, and their cultivation was not low, otherwise he wouldn't have been pushed back. His gaze swept over everyone in the cave before locking onto Zhang Ruoshi. Then his expression changed. "It was you." "Yes, it was me," she readily admitted. The newcomer's expression was a little ugly as he glared at her. It wouldn't be an issue if she had been alone, but this young woman was together with Yang Kai. Once they began to fight, Yang Kai naturally wouldn't stand by. The newcomer was bound to eat a loss if he went against the two of them with just himself. Therefore, he pondered for a bit and then cupped his fists together. "The astral wind is approaching, young lady. This one just wants to find shelter from it and has no other choice. This one would be very grateful if you could make an exception in this one's favor, but if you insist on meddling in this one's business, then this one will have to take necessary countermeasures. Even a rabbit will bite if forced into a corner." Although he said this to Zhang Ruoshi, he was looking at Yang Kai's face. However, to his disappointment, Yang Kai continued to sit silently without showing any reaction, as if it had nothing to do with him. It made him really uncertain whether Zhang Ruoshi and Yang Kai were together. There's no problem with wanting to find shelter, but it's first come first serve. There is no room left here. How could you try to drive someone away? Your life may be precious, but are not other people's lives as well? Zhang Ruoshi looked at the man angrily. In the past, the Zhang family was bullied because it was small and weak, so she couldn't stand this kind of want and oppression. She had tried to hold it in, but she just couldn't.